Welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Chapter 41 Gao Laozhuang. My starling noticed you. The 9th day of the new year. The soul-calling case that was about to get out of control actually began to shrink due to Shen Lian's efforts to eliminate ghosts. The situation seemed to be under control, and the Yamen runners breathed a sigh of relief. However, the rumors about the Black Coffin Demon are becoming more and more bizarre. Of course, not everyone thinks that it was the devil who was causing the trouble. Some people believed that it was the work of the alchemist who lived in seclusion in Yanliang town. After all, the Black Coffin Demon never affected them from beginning to end, and only dealt with the rampant demons. After the 9th day of the Lunar New Year arrived smoothly, the government office took advantage of the day to repair the courtyard wall and replace the damaged talismans in various places. Everything seems to be back on track. Even the county magistrate, who had been avoiding the disaster for a long time, took the opportunity to return to the Yamen to express his condolences. Before we knew it, the night of the 9th day of the Lunar New Year had arrived. In the past, there were strange noises coming out of the prison, but now it is dead silent. Captain Hong saw that the rest of the Yamen was relatively stable and sent a large number of Yamen runners to guard the entrances and exits of the prison, which made him feel uneasy. The hour of high arrived quietly, and the prison remained as calm as ever. There is no resentment or riot. When the bailiffs thought that the soul-calling case was over, suddenly, a singing voice as soft as jade came from deep in the prison. Miss Gao, it's a pity to say goodbye to you. I can't wait to send you my infinite love. The Yamen runners felt a chill down their spines, their voices filled with resentment of not getting what they wanted, which caused their blood to surge up and black blood to flow from their mouths and noses. Captain Hong gritted his teeth, clutched the talisman and said, "You retreat 100 meters away. I will go alone to check on the situation of Lord Jinwei. If it is not good, organize the people to evacuate immediately." He wiped the black blood from his mouth and nose and forced his way into the prison. I walked through the corridor of the cells where dozens of ghosts were imprisoned, but there was no reaction from the ghosts, as if they were also afraid. When Captain Hong reached the end of the corridor, his scalp suddenly felt numb. The 3 Jinwu guards had solemn expressions on their faces. In front of them was an empty cell with a huge amount of resentment pouring into it. The strange singing voice came from the ordinary letter on the wooden shelf. Ms. Gao. A ghost slowly crawled out of the paper, with an extremely hideous face. She looked like a graceful woman, but her various body parts were pieced together, with pungent pus oozing from the gaps. Ms. Gao, why don't you wait for me? The scapegoat knelt on the ground and wailed, and an extremely terrifying aura spread in all directions. Zhu Yihong reminded, Hong'an, get out. Ghosts with 500 years of cultivation can recover from their injuries by devouring blood. Captain Hong hurriedly left the prison, feeling sad at the same time. Warriors, or just blood-eaters after all. Zhu Yihong concentrated all his attention on the scapegoat. At the same time, he reached out and pulled out a handful of hair. As his internal force was activated, the hair intertwined with each other and turned into a doll with the same aura as the scapegoat. Li Shun, the ghost did run out from the ruins of Gaojia town. Yes, Gao Laozhuang. The pupils in Li Shun's palms popped out, and under the influence of internal force, a faint golden light emanated. After several days and nights of fierce fighting, the 3 of them had a tacit understanding that needed no explanation. After looking at each other, the golden light directly enveloped the scapegoat. Certainly. Zhu Yihong pierced the doll with his sword, and the scapegoat immediately suffered the same injury, but for some reason, his breath did not weaken. The scapegoat kept chattering about Miss Gao. The sound became increasingly rough. Zhu Yihong was stunned for a few breaths, then noticed that his companion rushed towards the scapegoat with a knife. Zhou Ling, something is wrong, that guy. Before he could finish his words, tissue began to wriggle on the scapegoat's wound, and then bloated flesh and skin squeezed out of it, making the golden light completely useless. 700 years of cultivation. No. It's probably close to 1,000 years. Zhou Ling paused. The woman's skin was just a cover-up, revealing the true form of the half-human, half-pig scapegoat, with his fat flesh filling almost every inch of the cell. And after the scapegoat's true identity appeared, chaos seemed to break out outside the cell. Roar. The scapegoat swung his arm, and Zhou Ling flew backwards with blood spitting out. The other 2 men attacked quickly, but their internal strength was insufficient to resist, and the means they had arranged before were unable to harm the scapegoat at all. What made them even more desperate was that the imprisoned ghosts were rioting. Ms. Gao. The scapegoat smashed the severely injured Zhou Ling into a pulp, then crawled towards Zhu Yihong, his flesh and skin tumbling in the narrow space. The two tried to use the terrain to maneuver until dawn, but Li Shun's pupils exploded. I'm afraid he'll die without a complete body. Zhu Yihong was also filled with resentment, his vision was blurred, and he groped his way to the corner of the prison, feeling despair in his heart. Zhu Yihong, why don't you chase the scapegoat? Is there any chance? They subconsciously looked towards the entrance and exit, and as a result, a shadow appeared in front of the prison door, a distorted shadow under the moonlight. Gao Xiao, call your mom. The starling's head tilted, and endless black air poured out like mercury on the ground. There was no light in the entire prison, and a hissing sound was heard. The nine-eared demon has arrived. Dozens of scapegoats that had just broken out of the cell retreated again and again. Whoosh! Dozens of ghosts were directly pierced by the long tail, and then the sound of a hot knife cutting butter was heard, and the ghosts were turning into resentment and scattered everywhere. The nine-eared demon greedily absorbed resentment, and its size continued to grow rapidly. The scapegoat felt like he was facing a formidable enemy, but unfortunately the nine-eared demon had been practicing for nearly 2,000 years, and the actual oppression made him dare not move. Zhu Yihong was so frightened that his face turned pale. She realized that it must be the 1,000-year-old demon lurking in Yanliang town. Li Shun murmured, his power is still increasing. It's impossible. How can there be such a big demon in the world? What is his purpose? Li Shun was in a state of collapse. He covered his head and banged it against the wall until he was knocked unconscious by Zhu Yihong. Zhu Yihong was incredibly aware that all the resentment in the prison was swept away, followed by waves of unwilling wails from the scapegoats. The nine-eared demon moved around as if playing with its prey. The claws cut open the scapegoat's flesh, and through the subtle wisdom of the eye, it deprives the resentment in its body, waits for the scapegoat to heal, and then repeats. The suppression of Taoism is particularly obvious among demons. Zhu Yihong listened to the nine-eared demon torturing the scapegoat the whole time. Fear was no longer enough to describe her mood at the moment. There was only despair deep in her bones. Miss Gao. The scapegoat muttered to himself, and his flesh, blood and bones fell apart and exploded into countless pieces, trying to escape by escaping. Roar! After the horrifying chewing, only the dissatisfied growl of the nine-eared demon remained. Zhu Yihong could no longer sense the scent of the scapegoat. She realized belatedly that after eating the scapegoat, the nine-eared demon seemed to be only one step away from becoming a 2,000-year-old demon. Zhu Yihong looked around and found that the cage was still sealed. She had a delusion. The nine-eared demon seemed to be waiting for something. To be precise, the nine-eared demon thought that the opportunity to be promoted to 2,000 years was about to come. Chapter 42 Promotion 9 Qi Earthly Disgust. When the hour of high arrived on the 9th day of the Lunar New Year, the resentment in the yamen subsided and then gathered towards the prison at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if the source had been controlled by the Jinwu guards. That's good, come home safely. Bai Haibo looked at the prison from afar and couldn't help but sigh. Although he had never seen his deceased wife in the form of a demon, at least his life was not in danger. The three warriors stationed with him were chatting and laughing nearby. Just wait for the midnight to arrive, which also means the soul calling case will be completely over. Miss Gao. Bai Haibo was in a trance when he heard the singing coming from the prison. His blood rushed to his head, and then a figure appeared in the darkness not far away. He wiped his eyes in disbelief. Wanner, is that you? The figure approached step by step. It was Bai Haibo's deceased wife who was haunting his dreams. He couldn't help but take a few steps forward to take a closer look. What? The figure opened his mouth, blood dripping from his sharp teeth. Demon. Bai Haibo followed the instructions of the yamen runner and kept the cow's tears, and his reaction was quite timely. The ghost showed greed on its face and rushed towards Bai Haibo using both hands and feet. Its sharp claws directly cut through the skin protected by its strong force. Bai Haibo felt resentment entering his body and knew he was no match for the demon, so he turned around and fled. Another warrior stationed there was torn in half on the spot. There were at least 20 or 30 ghosts that suddenly appeared, and the entire government office fell into civil strife. The bailiffs were simply unable to deal with the demons. Their talismans had become scarce in the previous few days, and they could only mobilize their pure yang energy to entangle the ghosts. There were warriors like headless flies everywhere, and the number of casualties was increasing. The main door and the side doors were sealed, and the living people were just fish on the chopping board. No way. Bai Haibo was covered in blood, his organs were damaged by the erosion of resentment, and his strength was exhausted from resisting the resentment. He was doomed. He was in a trance and instinctively tried to escape from the ghosts. At this time, "Go to the stables, it's safe there." Bai Haibo vaguely heard someone calling them to go to the stables, and immediately changed direction without thinking, regardless of whether it made sense or not. He stumbled to his destination, where 70 or 80 people were already hiding in the corner. There are ghosts everywhere around. The ghosts were no longer interested in them and were frantically attacking the talisman that sealed the carriage and stable, as if there was a temptation far beyond the ordinary inside. "Captain Hong, what on earth is this?" Bai Haibo was just about to ask Hong, and when the door of the stable was breached. The wind was howling, straw was scattered all over the ground, a black wooden coffin was placed in the corner, and the loud heartbeat sound of "dong dong dong" continued. The ghost couldn't control its appetite and pounced on the black wooden coffin with its fangs and claws bared. Everyone wanted to retreat, but the yamen runner who had seen the strength of the black coffin man remained motionless. Boom! The cover is lifted. The terrifying qi and blood seemed to be real. Shen Lian opened his eyes and climbed out of the black wooden coffin with his 2.5 meter tall figure. Just standing in the middle of the courtyard, the oppressive feeling he felt was suffocating. Just right. Shen Lian waved his right hand, and the exposed strength faintly turned into flames. A large amount of heat emanated from the pores, and mist filled the courtyard. The moment the force came into contact with the mist, a dark blue sea of fire that looked like smoke and dust was formed. Unknown pile method. Title: Inflammation. The pupils of the warriors present shrank slightly as they heard the hysterical screams from the ghost. Boom! Shen Lian smashed the ghost's head with his fist, and the ghost's head was directly embedded in the chest cavity. Its limbs were also twisted into a knot, and he threw it directly into the coffin. He stepped on the cover with his right foot and crushed the head of another ghost with his palm. The newly synthesized pile method is indeed powerful, but why does it feel like the power is like gasoline, and the state is like water, which will ignite at a touch? Shen Lian kicked open the lid of the coffin and threw himself into it again. His actions became even more unscrupulous. Any ghost would be broken in a few punches. The scene was completely one-sided. The warriors were in a trance. According to their understanding, even if the black coffin man was not a demon, he should be an alchemist. Why did he feel that? His methods were closer to those of a warrior. How could the power suppress the demon? Impossible, they must be short-sighted. Come on, come on. After Shen Lian adapted to the new strength, he moved his fists more and more vigorously. Usually, after just a few punches and palm strikes, the ghost's body was torn into pieces. However, if one does not use the wisdom of seeing oddities, even if one kills a low-level ghost, one has to use the qi, blood and water grinding technique to exhaust the ghost's resentment. The greed in the ghost's eyes faded away. At this time, more than a dozen ghosts were stuffed into the black wooden coffin. The lid was shaking continuously, and the screams were creepy. Hiss. Quote. It was the first time that the warriors saw the ghost running away with its head in its hands. Shen Lian stood where he was, allowing the ghosts to scramble to escape from the stable, and casually grabbed the head of a ghost that crawled out of the black wooden coffin. Boom. Appraisal completed, 9-year Chaofeng experience plus 0.29%. The other ghosts did not dare to move and watched the resentment flow into Shen Lian's mouth and nose. Let you run 40 meters. Shen Lian lowered his hat. Boom. As Shen Lian took a step, he disappeared from the spot in an instant. Bronze scales covered his upper body and his eyes showed devilish vertical pupils. Unknown horizontal training. Bronze body. He stepped to the gate of the courtyard, and the warriors faced the burning blood at close range. The two ghosts were twisted into a ball, and their arms covered with blue veins hit the ground, forcing the ghosts hiding in the soil out. Whoosh. Then Shen Lian used his arm as a whip and swung it out, and the ghostly fire force released penetrated the ghost. The courtyard was in ruins, with sunken pits more than half a meter deep, and grass and trees uprooted and flying in the air, but there was not a single ghost left. Shen Lian stuffed all the ghosts into the black wooden coffin. I almost exhausted all my strength in the heat of the moment. My martial arts skills are still not good enough. I must advance to the 5th level of innate realm as soon as possible. Shen Lian picked up the black wooden coffin, ignored the warriors watching, and disappeared into the night. He came to a remote alley outside the government office, stared at the black wooden coffin with burning eyes, then enveloped his body with strength, preparing to get into it. Suddenly, a prompt appeared on the career panel. Appraisal completed, 9-year Chaofeng experience plus 13.44%. 9-year Chaofeng reaches 94.88%, martial arts points plus 2. What the hell, what are the Jinwu guards doing in the prison? Did my dear brother use his eyes to steal the head of a 1,000-year-old ghost? I think I have enough experience. It seems that this trip was worthwhile. Shen Lian crawled into the crowded black wooden coffin, and his body temperature dropped as if he had fallen into an icy cave. The ghost struggled desperately, wanting to die together with Shen Lian, but in the end it just turned into the experience of Zhuo Chaofeng, and its progress was overflowing. 9-year Chaofeng reaches 100.12%, martial arts points plus 2. Whether to advance to the profession of 9 Qi Dian. Promotion. Dian, isn't that another name for a local dog? Zhuo Chaofeng promoted to Juqi Dian, martial arts points plus 20. Shen Lian did not delve into the 9 Qis because prompts about the third profession came one after another. The corpse Taoist profession has been triggered. You can start the job by spending 5 points. After Shen Lian confirmed his appointment, the resentment in the coffin inexplicably disappeared. Then his strong force acted on the black wooden coffin, causing the wooden boards to spontaneously combust without fire. In a moment, only dust was left on the ground. He hurried back to the pawn shop, with the myna bird landing on his shoulder with a look of disgust on his face. The black air covering the prison dissipated. Zhu Yihong woke up, with her hands and feet shaking uncontrollably. She didn't know whether the 9-eared demon had been promoted for 2,000 years. The memories before she fell into a coma flashed through her mind, and the one that impressed her the most was the huge monster, about 20 or 30 meters long, was crawling on the ground. Chapter 43, The Third Occupation, Corpse Taoist. As expected of the 8th master, if he doesn't make a move, it's fine, but when he does, it's amazing. The myna bird held its head high and chest puffed out proudly, glancing with a slight disdain at its mount, A Lian, and the bone blade on the latter's chest that also looked tattered. Whether I can succeed in martial arts or not depends mainly on your help, Master Ba. From now on, it will all depend on you to be self-sufficient and well-fed. Shen Lian flattered the myna bird earnestly, and the silly bird nodded in approval. There was no way. If it weren't for the myna bird's suspected act of stealing heads, the 9-eared Chaofeng would most likely not be able to collect the massive amount of experience required for promotion. After adding a wave of martial arts, I still have 22 points left. I made a fortune. With the addition of the newly appointed Corpse Taoist, the points for his synthetic martial arts will be enough, at least for a long period of time. It's a pity that I can't eat any more later, otherwise the sharp-toothed warrior should be close to being promoted. Alas, humans always have their limits. Even though Shen Lian had slept for a whole day and night, he still didn't feel hungry at all. This shows how horrible the overeating and drinking in the yamen was at that time. On his way back to the pawn shop, he secretly felt the power surging in his body. The new energy has yin and yang attributes and seems extremely strange, just like natural gas that has been compressed into liquefied form, and it always feels like it will explode at any time. However, Shen Lian also took advantage of the opportunity of strength fusion to successfully complete bone refining. His bones all over his body emitted a faint glow, and his strength could flow freely through them, and the efficiency of his bone marrow's hematopoiesis was greatly increased. With abundant qi and blood, the recovery of strength will naturally be better than before. Only a dozen minutes after Shen Lian left the yamen, a thin layer of strength had already grown in his originally exhausted dantian. The only drawback may be its increasingly peculiar nature. Now that the scales completely covered his upper body, Shen Lian guessed that after combining a few more stance techniques, his unreserved use of strength would be completely inhuman. Fortunately, the special ability can indeed resist the aura of demons. Next, I will have to work hard on blood refining, and I hope to become a warrior as soon as possible. Blood refining requires strength to temper every drop of blood until the blood is imbued with strength. After completing the 4 stages of foundation building, the warrior's lifespan will reach 120 years, provided that he dies of old age. Why do I feel like the 4th stage of foundation building is a process of gradually becoming more delicious? Shen Lian suppressed his distracting thoughts. At present, martial arts was still the safest path, and the demon's internal strength had more or less problems. He glanced at 2 martial arts whose names were unknown. The new stance is simply called Yin-Yang Tai Chi stance, and the horizontal training is called Immortal Bronze Body. Shen Lian looked around, and after making sure that no one noticed him, he jumped lightly into the pawnshop yard. At this time, the morning light was beginning to appear in the sky. The courtyard has changed a lot. The collapsed well has been rebuilt with blue bricks, and young buds of fruits and vegetables have sprouted on the wooden frame that was built not long ago. What concerned Shen Lian was that the decades-old banyan tree was more vibrant than in previous years, and its green branches and leaves looked lush and verdant. Will the banyan tree become a demon? Ah, Shen Lian, you have done such a bad thing, murder and arson, you have done all kinds of evil. Shen Lian quickly covered the starling's beak. In Yanliang town, any mention of demons would lead to extremely complicated inquiries from the government. Anyway, why did the treasure appraiser get promoted to the 9-Chi earthly devil? Shen Lian looked at the increasingly handsome starling. It was hard to imagine that a silly bird was associated with a profession that, after being promoted, had a name that meant, Earth Dog. Perhaps the only similarity is that the starling is nicknamed Husky. Of course, with the current size of the starling, even the crow can hardly catch up. Ah, your dad is tired and wants to go back to the cage to sleep. Shen Lian let go of the starling, and the latter quickly flew into the window of the wing room. The noise made by the starling attracted old Wang to look. When he saw that it was Shen Lian, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Young master, the antiques and paintings that I collected recently are placed in the warehouse. Thank you, Mr. Wang. Shen Lian couldn't muster the slightest interest. If nothing unexpected happens, the experience gained by the 9-Chi earth devouring will be diluted tenfold, and the antique calligraphy and paintings stained with resentment will no longer be of much significance. It is estimated that even a ghost with decades of practice will only have 1,000th of the experience. Shen Lian yawned, and after several waiters noticed the young master, the long-lost medicinal food appeared in a corner of the courtyard, and the fragrance was overwhelming. From now on, the experience of 9-eared, 9-hearted earth disgusting will depend on the starling. As many points as possible will be earned, and let the silly bird do more good things. Shen Lian broke off a piece of banyan tree branch and put it in his mouth to chew. It has a bit of that demonic flavor, but there is no experience feedback. Hiss, is it possible that the banyan tree will really turn into a demon in the future? Instead of being afraid, Shen Lian was very interested. If the banyan tree becomes a demon, doesn't that mean it has a stable source of nutrients? That's really good. Shen Lian just thought about it. After all, plants and trees have no intelligence. Becoming a demon requires years of baptism, not just absorbing a few corpses. It is better to hope that the starling will attain enlightenment and become a demon one day than to expect the banyan tree to transform into a tree demon and abduct a few beautiful female ghosts. Shen Lian summoned the career panel. Shen Lian. Realm. Foundation building, blood training. Martial arts. Yin-Yang Tai Chi posture, tide flame, indestructible bronze body. Points. 22. Level 0.01 occupation. 9-Chi earth hatred %. Second level occupation. Sharp-toothed warrior 51.71%. First level occupation. Corpse Taoist 0%. Relationship. None. Magic power. ***. The corpse Taoist profession requires binding the fundamental item within 12 hours. The corpse Taoist profession does not have any fundamental qualities, and cannot nurture magical powers. When Shen Lian was checking his career panel, the corpse Taoist's prompts kept appearing in front of him. With his previous experience as a warrior, he understood that there was no need to rush to bind the fundamental items. His attention was temporarily focused on Juki Dian. Shen Lian was very curious about the power of the Eyes of Wisdom. 9-Chi Wisdom Eyes can easily identify antique calligraphy and paintings less than 2,000 years old. As expected, I should be able to deal with a ghost that has been in the Taoist world for 2,000 years. Well, I am worthy of being the best ghost exorcist in Yanliang town. Shen Lian nodded slightly, already imagining the scene of waving his hand to destroy the demon. And many more. Shen Lian's expression became stiff, and he suddenly realized a crucial problem. If he wanted to use his wisdom eye, he had to face the ghost directly. There is no doubt about the horror of the 1,000-year-old ghost. According to the fragment mentioned in the Corpse Transformation Sutra, the resentment of a 1,000-year-old ghost can destroy a town in an instant, and it cannot be detected by ordinary means. At that time, Zhu Sengxing's cultivation was definitely not more than 1,000 years old. As a result, the Jinwu guards spent several months to barely lure him out from the darkness of Yanliang town. Shen Lian's martial arts skills are good enough to bully 100-year-old ghosts, but once he encounters a 1,000-year-old demon, I'm afraid that before he even gets close, his energy and blood will have been exhausted by the erosion of resentment, and the 1,000-year-old demon will not let him notice anything at all. Forget it, keep a low profile. Shen Lian was flipping through the secret book of breath holding, secretly pondering the fundamental nature of the corpse Taoist. Logically speaking, since corpse Taoists are a special profession, their awakened magical powers must be far beyond ordinary ones. Of course, they may also be quite evil. Chapter 44, The Strange Corpse Taoist Magical Powers. Shen Lian rested until the afternoon, then went out to the market to select basic items for the corpse Taoist. By the way, he also took a look at the reaction of the government office. After all, the noise caused by carrying the black wooden coffin was not small, and there was also a myna bird causing trouble. But what was unexpected was that the Jinwu guards didn't seem to have any intention of investigating further. Almost at dawn, when the resentment that had shrouded the government office had mostly dissipated, the hundreds of warriors who had been stationed there had already returned home one after another. The rumor about the Black Coffin Man is getting more and more intense in the city, and it is a little ambiguous whether it is a demon or not. Shen Lian carefully recalled his experience of going in and out of the yamen. Even when he was custom making the coffin, he maintained his horizontal training throughout the process, so there should be no omissions. He put his mind at ease and focused on wandering around the market, and indeed found the right item. A 500-year-old earthenware jar, originally used as a burial object to store grain, rusty coffin rivets, blood-soaked jade stuffed into the mouth of the corpse before burial. Overall, it fits in very well with the corpse Taoist. Shen Lian took everything back to the pawnshop and lay in the recliner thinking secretly. Hey, they are all related to the dead. It feels too weird. Logically speaking, it would be meaningless to awaken the ability to refine zombies. Shen Lian pinched his nose bridge with a headache and reached out to take the medicinal food that Fugi handed to him attentively. To refine corpses, one needs to stay in a place with strong resentment for a long time. Even if magical powers can play an auxiliary role, the refined zombies will inevitably attract the attention of the government. As a martial arts master and part-time exorcist, there is no need for me to take crooked paths. No. Besides, these things are really common and don't match the rarity of special professions. Shen Lian frowned slightly, his eyes subconsciously falling on the banyan tree in the corner of the yard. The branches that had just been picked off not long ago were sprouting new buds again. He showed his discerning eye. Centennial banyan tree identified successfully. Centennial banyan tree. It has been planted by Shen Tongming since he was a child, and it has been 175 years. Because of the recent sufficient nutrients, it has shown signs of reviving. Based on the abnormality shown by the banyan tree, there is indeed a possibility that it has transformed into a demon. Banyan trees are yin, which in a sense also fits the character for corpse Taoist. Shen Lian's only concern was the damage to the object. If he was bound to the banyan tree, it would mean that he would most likely not be able to move in the future. He thought for a moment, banyan trees are very easy to propagate by dividing. If you break off a branch and stick it into the soil, it will grow into a sapling. Compared to starlings and bone blades, they seem to be more difficult to damage. The most important thing is that after a few hundred or thousand years, once the banyan tree becomes a demon, it will be a self-reliant top 10 employee, and banyan trees don't have mouths. That's it. Binding burial objects will only affect my painting style. Is it confirmed that the banyan tree is the root of the corpse Taoist? Determine. Occupation. Corpse Taoist 0%. Related. Banyan tree. Magic power. Shen Lian's head suddenly began to buzz. The reaction of the bound object was stronger than expected, and his 5 senses suddenly fell into a trance. After resting for half a day, the starling flew out of the room and looked at the banyan tree with its head tilted. The starling has undergone a complete transformation in a short period of time. Its size has increased dramatically and it now looks like a bird of prey. Click click click. Bone Blade also opened his mouth and stuck his tongue out of his collar. At the tip of his tongue, one could see a pitch-black eyeball. Immediately afterwards, in an angle that was invisible to the naked eye, Shen Lian's entire body emanated blood-red smoke. The smoke and dust looked like vaporized flesh and blood. Ah! The starling's cry isolated the evil spirit in the yard to prevent the newly born little brother from causing unnecessary trouble. The blood was surging in the courtyard, becoming more and more intense as time went on. It was clearly just an invisible gas, but it gradually revealed muscle-like textures. After a moment, blood and energy rushed towards the banyan tree like young swallows returning to their nests. When the blood energy enveloped the banyan tree, it looked as if the tree had grown flesh and blood. When Shen Lian came to his senses, the banyan tree had returned to its normal state. If you look closely, you can see that the veins inside the leaves are like blood vessels. The starling turned over and continued to sleep. Bone Blade was already used to playing badly, and when he saw Mina disappear into the room, he also restrained his breath. Occupation: Corpse Taoist 0%. Question mark. Related: Banyan tree. Magic power: Pregnancy. Conceiving: Absorbing the medicinal power of plants and the nutrients of living things to breed great medicine. Kindness. The corner of Shen Lian's eyes twitched. He didn't understand what the connection was between the power to conceive and the corpse Taoist. Shouldn't the two be completely unrelated? He took out half a pound of medicinal materials that were left over from cooking the medicinal food and was stunned for a moment. Should we bury the herbs under the tree? That's too much trouble. After studying for a long time, Shen Lian discovered that the banyan tree was actually hollow. There was a tree hole at the top of the trunk that could accommodate an adult. The inside of the tree hole was extremely dry and the temperature was much higher than the outside world. He placed the herbs in the tree hole, and then used his magical power to conceive. After Shen Lian waited patiently for a day and a night, an inconspicuous green fruit grew on the branch, with a faint medicinal fragrance. Question mark. Blood replenishing fruit. Question mark. Grown from the banyan tree, it has the effects of promoting blood circulation, removing blood stasis, nourishing and beautifying the skin after taking it. Shen Lian threw it into his mouth and chewed it. The taste he found was as bitter as the medicinal herbs. After swallowing it into his stomach, it brought in nutrients continuously. Call. The yin and yang forces digest nutrients and speed up blood flow. It can be seen that the blood replenishing fruit can significantly promote blood refining. Shen Lian closed his eyes and circulated the yin and yang energy. It took 2 hours for the nutrients to be completely used up. You know, it only takes 10 minutes for the giant stomach to digest the medicinal food, and the blood replenishing fruit can definitely be used as an aid to daily practice. But, quote, Shen Lian had a strange expression on his face. He could guess with his toes that the corpse Taoist gained experience from the corpses of monsters, and the elixirs produced by the corpses must be far superior to ordinary ones. Shen Lian went to buy a few kilograms of 2 or 3 years old medicinal herbs. As a result, no matter what medicinal materials were used, the only thing that was produced in the end was the blood replenishing fruit. If the medicinal materials are younger, the banyan tree will need to consume more medicinal materials to grow, and the nutrients of the blood replenishing fruit will not be the same. Shen Lian was amazed. Don't dwell on the connection between pregnancy and corpse. It would be great if I could have the ability to make elixirs. Ordinary medicinal herbs are not expensive. When converted, the blood replenishing fruit is even more cost-effective than medicinal food, he. After careful consideration, Shen Lian gave up the idea of selling blood replenishing fruit. The same elixir fruit keeps appearing in the market, which will cause trouble sooner or later, not to mention that the blood replenishing fruit that looks like elixir and fruit is too magical. Shen Lian stuffed the blood replenishing fruit into a gourd and soaked it in wine to drink. Little did people know that the blood replenishing fruit shook inexplicably the moment it came into contact with the alcohol. Comfortable. Shen Lian slept against the banyan tree, and his days were filled with elixirs and wine. During this period, he wanted to go to the ghost market to make some money, but the ghost market was not opened for a month, which indirectly proved that the starling had caused quite a stir. Shen Lian concentrated on practicing the breath-holding method, and used the same strength to carefully stimulate the heart acupoints. The difficulty of the breath-holding method is that it can easily damage the heart. I spent most of the month leisurely. Shen Lian almost forgot about his cheap father. Until the carriage with the logo of Shen's pawn shop stopped at the west gate of Yanliang town at some point. Chapter 45 Shen Hansheng returns from Gaolaozhuang. The west gate of Yanliang town. No one noticed when the carriage appeared on the official road. From time to time, weak coughs could be heard from inside, and passers-by avoided it as much as possible. In a moment, the carriage was blocked by a large number of yamen runners. Zhu Yihong and Li Shun checked the carriage that appeared suddenly. For some reason, it reminded them of the scapegoat they encountered in the soul-calling case. The carriage was filled with resentment, but there was no sign of wheels rolling along the road. Yanliang town seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Li Shun carefully lifted the curtain and saw a skinny man who was unconscious and had blurred consciousness. Li Shun, what's going on? Could it be related to the soul-calling case? The image of the nine-eared demon flashed through Zhu Yihong's mind and his face turned pale. Li Shun shook his head and said, it shouldn't be caused by a scapegoat, but the man inside has been filled with resentment for a long time. I'm afraid he won't live for a few more days. Well, I worried too much. The soul-calling case has been over for more than half a month, but for Zhu Yihong and others, the terror brought by the nine-eared demon is still vivid in their minds. In addition, there were frequent disasters in Gaojia town, so they couldn't help but feel nervous. Zhu Yihong noticed the logo of Shen's pawnshop on the carriage and guessed that the dying man might be the owner of the shop, so he asked Captain Hong to notify Shen Lian. Captain Hong had just left not long ago. The surrounding yamen runners parted, and a middle-aged Jinwu guard with a stern expression stepped forward, followed by the county magistrate of Yanliang town. I've met Mr. Baihu. Zhu Yihong and the other person bowed their heads respectfully. The centurion's name is Yang Weikeng, who was temporarily transferred to Yanliang town not long ago. His special features are concentrated on the top of his head, where a branch similar to that of an apricot tree grows out, and just like the vegetation in spring, it sprouts little buds. Yang Weikeng glanced at Shen Hansheng and said coldly, Yanliang town has so many things going on. You have to report all the ghosts to the government. Zhu Yihong didn't dare to say much. Yang Weikeng continued, demons attack and kill mortals every day. If you can't take care of them, you can just ignore them and let the yamen runners know what's going on. The county magistrate had a grim expression and kept wiping the sweat from his forehead. Yang Weikeng's inner strength surged, and his words were slightly threatening. The Jinwu guards in Gaojia town are in urgent need of the fish monster's gallbladder for medicine. You should focus on luring the fish monster. As for the 1,000-year-old demon, let's put it aside for now. The county magistrate interrupted flatteringly, Lord Yang has used various methods to search, but he has not detected any trace of the 1,000-year-old demon. The 1,000-year-old demon most likely came from the salt mine mountains. It just smelled the evil spirits and came to the town to have a feast. But, quote, Zhu Yihong frowned slightly. The Jinwu guards sent Yang Weikeng to hunt for the 1,000-year-old demon, but the latter not only didn't care, but also wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to make a fortune. Zhu Yihong heard that many thousand households had rushed to Gaolaozhuang, and the resources of the Jinwu guards would definitely be tilted towards it, so how could they be short of the fish monster gallbladder? The county magistrate interrupted directly, but what but? Zhu Yihong, have you ever seen a 1,000-year-old demon transform into a human? Yang Weikeng ignored the county magistrate. In the Tang Dynasty, ordinary Jinwu guards were called 10 households, who could meet officials without kneeling. As for 100 households, like Yang Weikeng, their positions allowed them to bypass the prefects and county magistrates and give orders to yamen runners. It is difficult to reach the people in the thousands or tens of thousands of households above that. Captain, the carriage should be filled with the owner of the Shen family pawnshop who disappeared years ago. I'll ask them to take the carriage back. Zhu Yihong pointed inside the city gate, and Shen Lian and Dang Dingzhang hurried over. If resentment enters the body, it will lead to death. It is better to bury it on the spot. The county magistrate waved his hand in disdain. Zhu Yihong was a little surprised to see Shen Lian's strong blood and energy. After all, the latter had just started to build the foundation of martial arts 2 or 3 months ago. Yang Weikeng looked at Zhu Yihong, not understanding why the latter was surprised. Zhu Yihong hurriedly explained, Master Baihu, Shen Lian has an outstanding talent in martial arts, and has made great progress in recent days. She didn't finish her words. Shen Lian had made great progress. In just half a year, he had completed a process that would take ordinary martial artists more than 10 years. His aptitude was unprecedented. Yang Weikeng disagreed, martial arts are useless after all, useless fools who deceive themselves. Your Excellency is absolutely right. Even if a warrior reaches the 5th level of the innate realm, his lifespan is only 150 years, which is incomparable to the 300 years of internal strength. Not to mention, warriors are completely powerless against demons. Shen Lian came to the carriage and recognized at a glance that the man in the carriage was Shen Hansheng, and the resentment in the latter's body was not optimistic. Today is indeed the 39th day of the first lunar month. Shen Lian realized that his cheap father might have encountered a demon in Gaojia town, so the letter contained resentment. His keen insight might have saved Shen Hansheng's life. He still remembered the identifying information revealed by the letter. Shen Hansheng's family letter. Written by Shen Hansheng, the ink and paper were taken from the shop number 13, Yongqi Street, Gaojia town, and it carries Shen Hansheng's wish to return home. Closing square bracket. It's my father, Shen Hansheng, for sure. Zhu Yihong nodded and said, where did Shen Hansheng go some time ago? The pawn business often requires traveling back and forth to Gaojia town. My father has been staying in Gaojia town since the beginning of the year and has never returned. Gaojia town, no wonder. Zhu Yihong said with sympathy, the erosion of resentment is difficult to eradicate. Shen Lian, you should prepare for your funeral in advance. The body must be cremated as soon as possible. Shen Lian agreed verbally, but in reality he was just about to reach out and use his keen eyes to see the subtle details. What resentment is eroding? They are not even good enough in front of the ghost exorcist in Yanliang town. I won't bother you anymore. I'll be leaving now. Shen Lian asked Dang Ding to push the carriage, and soon disappeared out of the west gate. Yang Weikang stared at the carriage disappearing into the busy street, and as if remembering something, he asked, is their family a pawn shop? It's a pawn shop, run for 3 generations. Yang Weikang licked his lips and couldn't help but think of a strange thing that happened in Gao village. Gao Laozhuang is a relic from thousands of years ago. The streets and alleys inside are still kept as they were, and are home to powerful demons. It can be said that all the demons that haunt nearby towns come from Gao Laozhuang. Yang Weikang clearly remembered that there was a Yongqi Street in Gao Laozhuang, and every shop there had strange and inexplicable taboos. There are 15 stores in total, but around the Chinese New Year, a new store inexplicably appeared on Yongqi Street. The sign of the new shop was blurry, and one could barely tell it was a pawn shop. The doors and windows were closed, and no one had yet broken in. Although Yang Weikang didn't think that a dying pawn shop owner would be related to Gao Laozhuang, he still couldn't help but feel a little interested. Zhu Yihong, their pawn shop is in Xicheng district. Yes. Zhu Yihong replied hesitantly, Hefeng Street in Xicheng district. Hey, I got it. A smile appeared on Yang Weikang's lips, and smoke and dust were wafting from the branches of the apricot trees above his head. Zhu Yihong thought to herself that this was bad. Yang Weikang was notoriously difficult to deal with. She had to be careful next time to avoid getting into trouble. But they didn't notice. On the city wall, there stood a starling, shaking its head. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 46 Shen Lian's Human Father, Ghost Father, and Bird Father. As soon as Shen Lian returned to the pawnshop, he leaned over and got into the carriage. Young master, the shopkeeper should be all right, right? Rest assured. Old Wang and others were filled with worry. They didn't expect that Shen Hansheng almost died in Gaojia town, and they didn't know what happened to him that made him so emaciated. Shen Lian turned around and reminded, Fugi, go call Dr. Lin from the Miaosho clinic. I'll check on the old man first. Young master, I'll go right away. Shen Lian noticed that Shen Hansheng was still in a state of confusion, with resentment spreading throughout almost every organ. He poured a mouthful of medicinal wine soaked in blood-replenishing fruit into Shen Hansheng's mouth, and the latter's face regained some color and his breathing became steady. However, the resentment has not been eliminated, and even powerful medicine will only be a drop in the bucket. Shen Lian used his keen eye. Shen Hansheng's identification is successful, 9 Qi Di Yan experience plus 0.02%. Shen Hansheng's body was filled with resentment. Before he was promoted to the 9th Qi Earth Yan, his experience was at least equivalent to that of a ghost with 20 to 30 years of cultivation. Unfortunately, the harvest is very little now, and only the 100-year-old ghosts can promote the progress of career advancement. The wisdom eye that has been promoted 3 times can actually obtain information about others. Question mark. Shen Hansheng. At the age of 38 and 2 months, the owner of the Shen family pawnshop was seriously injured, with only half of his flesh and bones remaining. Shen Lian gently stroked Shen Hansheng's back, and released his yin-yang energy quietly as if he were using his arms and fingers, fearing that Shen Hansheng would not be able to benefit from the medicine because of his weakness. When the resentment dissipated, Shen Hansheng immediately showed signs of regaining consciousness. "Ah Lian, Dad, it's me. You should have some sleep. You have just recovered from a serious illness." Shen Hansheng forced his eyes open, and only closed them again when he saw Shen Lian. His originally furrowed brows relaxed. "What?" Shen Lian looked puzzled, and Yin Yangjin noticed that something was wrong with Shen Hansheng. The information revealed by the wise eye was indeed true. Half of the blood, flesh and bones of the cheap old man were inexplicably missing. Not only did the muscles atrophy, but the bone density also became sparse, It was as if Shen Hansheng was divided into two people. Shen Lian licked his lips and compared the various ghosts mentioned in the Corpse Transformation Sutra. Letter, scapegoat. A characteristic of scapegoats is that they will wrap their resentment in inconspicuous objects, and when the objects are obtained by strangers, they will come to claim the life. That letter was probably the medium for the scapegoat to come to my house. The handwriting on the letter is definitely from Old Man Shen. Could it be that? There was a high probability that Shen Hansheng was in the process of becoming a scapegoat at that time. If Shen Lian had not dispelled the resentment in the letter, Shen Hansheng at the gate of West City today would definitely be a ghost rather than a human. And many more. Could it be that the missing half of Old Man Shen's body has been transformed into a ghost? It was forcibly stripped out because of the subtle wisdom eye. If the stripped ghost survives, wouldn't that mean? Perhaps there is another Shen Hansheng who has transformed into a ghost in Gaojia town. Hiss. There's a ghost father for no reason. Mina Bird came into the carriage and said in a mean way, "Ah, you have 3 fathers." Shen Lian raised his middle finger in disdain, feeling that he had to find an opportunity to teach the stupid bird a lesson. The starling seemed to be rebelling against Tian Gang. "Make way, hey, why is Mr. Shen like this?" Dr. Lin arrived and hurriedly pushed aside the curtain and quickly felt Shen Hansheng's pulse and examined him, but he was relieved after seeing his pulse. He glanced at Shen Lian. Shen Hansheng must have taken expensive medicine, otherwise how could the pulse of a skinny patient be so strong? "You are weak and have weak energy. Take good care of yourself in the next 6 months. As for how much Manager Shen can recover, it all depends on God's will." Dr. Lin couldn't help but marvel at it and told Shen Lian to take good care of him. He thought that Shen Hansheng was being corroded by the aura of a demon, and wanted to prescribe some strong medicine to help him regain consciousness and make arrangements for his funeral. Unexpectedly, his pulse condition was improving. Shen Lian felt relieved. The demonic aura is easy to remove, but I am afraid that Shen Hansheng's organs have already failed. Why do I feel like Old Man Shen has only been filled with resentment for a short time? It can't be that Ghost Daddy personally sent Yanliang Town here, right? Shen Lian gave up the idea. What ghost could resist the temptation of blood food? The population size of Gaojia Town far exceeds that of Yanliang Town. The Jinwu guards stationed there must be highly skilled. Even if a scapegoat appears, he will be wiped out by the government immediately. After Shen Lian settled Shen Hansheng, it was already late without him noticing. He was in no mood to waste time in the courtyard, so he simply went back to his room to practice the breath-holding technique. He still hadn't mastered this advanced level of training. The main reason is that the acupoints involving the heart are too hidden. There were people in the yamen to guide him, but Shen Lian had to rely entirely on his own exploration. He really didn't dare to do it by force, and so far he has only determined the locations of some of the acupoints. The yin and yang energy flows through the blood vessels to the heart little by little. Shen Lian couldn't help but feel frightened. If it was the previous Zulong Jin, he wouldn't have to worry too much, but the power of Yin Yang Jin was enough to make his internal organs explode. Unconsciously, he was immersed in the breath-holding technique. The moonlight is hazy. The back door of the pawn shop was quietly pushed open. Yang Weikang walked into the courtyard with a subtle expression. Dewdrops were dripping from the apricot branches above his head, making his figure invisible. Interesting, really interesting. The resentment that has penetrated deep into the bone marrow can be dispelled. Does the Shen family pawnshop know a Taoist priest in the wild, or does it have a magic weapon that can ward off evil spirits? When Yang Weikang thought of this, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise. He walked around the courtyard, trying to find the so-called magic weapon to ward off evil spirits. Although he found nothing after a long time, his interest in it increased instead of decreasing. There's a black coffin man who looks like a Taoist priest in the soul-calling case. Let me see if you have any connection with the Shen family pawn shop, haha. A hint of malice flashed in Yang Weikang's eyes, and he came to the well. He took out a ball of pills that looked like apple snail eggs and threw them into the well. Suddenly, a faint demonic aura filled the air, but it disappeared in a moment. Yang Weikang naturally lured out the fish monster through the wells in various places in Yanliang town. But the wells previously selected by the Yamen were all located around remote and abandoned buildings, with the exception of Shen's pawnshop, which shows that Yang Weikang had sinister intentions. To Yang Weikang, it was just an insignificant chess move. As an ordinary warrior, Shen Lian would be in danger when the fish monster appeared. If a Taoist priest came to rescue him, Yang Weikang would kill the fish monster and make friends with the Taoist priest behind it. If Shen Lian died at the hands of the fish monster, then let him die, he was just a warrior. Yang Weikang left the courtyard with a sneer. The apricot blossom branch had bloomed red buds, but wrapped in the petals was a fat maggot. He didn't notice. When a gust of spring breeze blows, the leaves of the banyan tree sway slightly, and the shadows of the branches reflected on the wall look like twisted ghosts and monsters. Yang Weikang stepped out of the courtyard gate, but the shadow of his feet remained in the same place. The shadow opened its mouth, its sharp teeth emitting a cold light, and a long and narrow tongue extending more than half a meter, its greed beyond words. Ah! Yang Weikang looked around belatedly and saw a crow preening its feathers not far away. The crow is in a hurry to die. Haha, wait a few more days. Chapter 47, The Fish Monster of Bibotan. Dad, you need to rest for another half a month before you can walk again. Shen Lian sat in front of Shen Hansheng's bed, constantly using yin-yang energy to guide nutrients. After 2 days of rest, the latter no longer looked like he was on the verge of death, and his complexion was as if he had just recovered from a long illness. Cough cough. Lian, I've met many martial artists before. If you waste your energy like this, it will easily damage your own qi and blood. Shen Lian shook his head until Shen Hansheng completely absorbed the nutrients. Shen Hansheng sighed deeply, secretly lamenting that since he was no longer in the pawn shop, Shen Lian's character had changed a lot, and he couldn't help feeling relieved. Shen Lian smiled. Hee, quickly consuming energy will help improve your cultivation. While this old man is running low on energy and blood, I'll do it a few more times no matter what. What a scene of loving father and filial piety. The two talked about Shen Hansheng's experience in Gaojia town. When Shen Hansheng thinks back on it now, he still feels as if he has just woken up from a dream. In fact, he had already found an escort agency to escort him to Yanliang town years ago, but the sudden heavy rain caused thick mountain fog. The caravan lost its way, and Shen Hansheng had no choice but to turn back to Gaojia town. The result. In Shen Hansheng's impression, he seemed to have come to a town that was somewhat similar to Gaojia town, but completely different, and his consciousness became confused. I think I also opened a pawn shop there. Shen Hansheng covered his head in pain, and Shen Lian stopped asking questions when he saw this. Shen Lian guessed that his cheap father had most likely accidentally entered the territory of the 1,000-year-old demon, and that it was somewhat of a coincidence that he was still alive. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door outside the compartment. Dad, please get some more sleep. Kindness. Shen Lian said goodbye and walked out of the room. He saw Fugi with a horrified look on his face. What's wrong? Young master, that Ma Yi is here to deliver fish again, but that fish is really a little weird, it makes my hair stand on end. Shen Lian's mind moved slightly, and he quickly came to the courtyard of the pawnshop. As soon as he approached, he smelled an indescribable stench, as if it was the unique flavor of rotten fish that had been fermenting for a long time. He could even hear the sound of a yellow dog vomiting coming from the wall of the next courtyard. Old Wang covered his mouth and nose, and the starling on the courtyard wall started shouting loudly. Ah, that's so exciting. Ma Yi and the villagers who accompanied him stood aside somewhat awkwardly. They were carrying a wooden barrel half the height of a person, and the source of the stench was inside. Young master, when we first cast the net and caught the big black carp, it was about the same as other fish. The flavor only became stronger as time went by. Let me see. Shen Lian had already sensed the throbbing of the giant stomach, which meant that the thing in the wooden barrel belonged to an accomplished little demon. The stream where they were catching fish might actually be a tributary of the Bibotan lake. No, 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 master, please pay the money first. Are you afraid that I won't give it to you? That fish is a little scary. If you change your mind, we will suffer a great loss. Shen Lian took out 2 taels of silver, and Ma Yi quickly took it with a smile. The other villagers were also very happy. 2 taels were enough to buy a lot of rice bran. Ouch! When the barrel is opened, the corners of Shen Lian's mouth kept twitching. A 2-meter-long strange fish curled up inside. Not only did its eyeballs look like human eyes, but it also had the hands and feet of a baby under its body. Big black carp. Growing in Bibotan Lake, it is 5 years old. When alive, its meat is tender and delicious. After death, it is highly poisonous and cannot be eaten. A fish demon with 5 years of cultivation. It's probably just transformed into a demon, so the demonic aura is quite weak. Shen Lian secretly thanked his lucky stars for the banyan tree, otherwise he might have swallowed it all. What if he became addicted to it after a long time? Ah, show me a 3-bite fish. Shen Lian closed the cover. Father-in-law, let me remind you that this fish is very evil. If you catch it again in the future, you must be more careful. It's really weird. There's a fish about 7 or 8 meters long in the deep water. Old Chen's blue cow was dragged into the water by it. The villagers were talking about it. Ma Yi smiled and said, but big black carp rarely appear these days. I think it will be hard to see them again in a few days. Oh, Ma Yi said to himself in confusion, it seems someone has dug a nest in another tributary and lured away all the big black carp. What a pity. Shen Lian frowned slightly. Banborba and Baborban were insignificant in the world of Journey to the West, but they were definitely big monsters. If anything unusual happened in Bibotan, it would not be a good thing. After seeing off Ma Yi and his companions, Shen Lian immediately threw the fish monster into the banyan tree. Not to mention, when the magical power of pregnancy was used, the banyan tree seemed to be able to freshen the air, and the stench disappeared completely. Absorb large bluefish, corpse Taoist experience plus 1.2%. Not bad. Shen Lian waited for a day and a night, and the big black fish successfully turned into a red fruit. A fruit shaped like amber appeared on the branch of the banyan tree. The fruit is translucent and contains a young fish with its belly turned upside down. Fish fruit. Grown from the banyan tree, it nourishes qi and blood, improves eyesight and moistens the lungs after consumption. Brighten the eyes and moisten the lungs. Shen Lian threw it into his mouth, and it turned into nutrients before he could chew it. Take fish fruit, sharp-toothed warrior experience plus 0.47%. Shen Lian nodded in satisfaction. The 2 magical powers complemented each other, and the nutrients brought by the fish fruit were definitely more than swallowing the fish monster alive. He channeled the yin and yang energies to digest nutrients, while feeling the coolness nourishing his eyes and lungs. After a long time, Shen Lian opened his eyes, and the white air that came out of his mouth was 4 or 5 meters long, sweeping over the grass leaves, and the vegetation in the courtyard became clearer. That's it. The demons can refine pills to improve the foundation of various organs in the body, but what about ghosts? Shen Lian looked at the well in the courtyard and said regretfully, if only I knew how to make a nest, I could just lie at home every day and there would be an endless supply of fish monsters coming to my door. Oh, I think too much. Shen Lian stretched and continued to think about the breath-holding method. Most of the acupoints inside and outside the heart have been found, and the yin-yang energy has begun to be tempered, but it inevitably causes the blood flow to become disordered. It is indeed necessary to master the breath-holding technique, otherwise there is no need to go out at all. Shen Lian's martial arts foundation is too strong. The qi and blood in the 4th stage of foundation building are more than 10 to 20 times that of ordinary martial artists. Once he is promoted to the 5th stage of innateness, the qi and blood content is likely to exceed 60 to 70 times. What a concept. I'm afraid that in the eyes of demons, Tang monk's meat is the most precious. Demons and monsters come here every day. Shen Lian focused on the breath-holding method, and then spent another 2 days before finally becoming familiar with the heart acupoints and mastering the rules of tempering the acupoints. As long as you follow your heart rate, there are no disadvantages to practicing kumbhaka. Shen Lian's heart has certain benefits. The muscles that make up the heart become stronger, and the efficiency of blood refining increases imperceptibly. Kansuba, first look. No wonder the government attaches great importance to the breath-holding method. This horizontal training should be a very special internal training martial art, which can just make up for the defects of the indestructible bronze body, making it completely indestructible inside and out. I hope the ghost market will reopen soon. Whether I can flourish in martial arts depends entirely on the ghost of ransom. Chapter 48. My son Shen Lian has the potential to be an emperor. After Shen Hansheng regained his strength, although he could not leave the room, he would lean against the window in his spare time and watch Shen Lian practicing martial arts from afar. Shen Lian was practicing the breath-holding technique in the courtyard, and his every move seemed natural. If he had practiced martial arts since childhood, perhaps Lian would have already trained his bones and blood. Shen Hansheng was in mixed feelings. It had only been half a year since he went to Gaojia town, but Shen Lian had changed his previous way of joking around and was now deeply engaged in martial arts. Doesn't this mean that I'm not a good teacher? Shen Hansheng smiled bitterly, but then he couldn't help but worry. I heard that warriors' vigorous blood and energy easily attract demons to spy on them, and they find it difficult to face the demons directly. I don't know if it's true or not. Hey, martial arts is good for strengthening the body, don't ask for too much. Once I am healthy again, I will definitely visit Master Bai of the Tide Martial Arts School. Shen Lian opened his eyes. As the heartbeat rate slows down, the originally strong energy and blood are gradually restrained, and even the body size shrinks. He called out his profession panel and found that he had indeed mastered the breath-holding technique to a certain extent. Breath-holding method, minor success. It took me half a month to get started, but it only took me one day to go from the initial glimpse to the minor success. It is worthy of being the innate horizontal training holy body that has never been seen before. Of course, it is also related to the small number of acupoints involved in the breath-holding method. Once Shen Lian figured out the distribution of the heart's acupoints, tempering the acupoints would be a piece of cake, and the yin-yang energy would flow throughout the heart at all times. The internal martial arts are interesting, but it's a pity that the breath-holding method only targets the heart. Shen Lian could feel that when he used the breath-holding method to fully converge his qi and blood, his own metabolism would reach its lowest point, which meant that he would not feel hungry even if he did not eat for a long time, which was equivalent to turtle breathing. He practiced the Jikao boxing technique intentionally, and his moves seemed to be as light as lifting heavy objects. Shen Lian vaguely touched upon the bottleneck on the way to perfection of the Jikao fist, so he simply stopped using the yin-yang power and concentrated entirely on the changes in his fists and palms. Time flies. The Jikao boxing technique is becoming more and more spiritual. Because Shen Lian maintained the breath-holding method the whole time, his boxing skills did not have the usual thunderous force at all, but instead contained the artistic conception of rising tides. Shen Hansheng, who was watching from the sidelines, fell into a trance and suddenly realized that he had underestimated Shen Lian. He seemed to be able to hear the sound of rolling waves hitting the rocks, and the oncoming spring breeze brought with it the wet and salty smell of the sea water, and the power of his fists was beyond imagination. Hiss. Quote. Sunset is approaching. The light in the courtyard grew dim, and Shen Lian had been practicing boxing for an hour or two without realizing it. The artistic conception of the Jikao boxing technique became more and more obvious. Shen Hansheng came back to his senses and secretly marveled at Shen Lian's superior aptitude in martial arts. At this moment, kindness. Shen Hansheng frowned slightly. He noticed that the well water in the courtyard had overflowed unknowingly and had formed a puddle in the corner. Is there a flood coming? That's not right. With the high terrain of Yanliang town, there has been no flood for thousands of years. Pat. A pale arm stretched out from the well. Shen Hansheng's pupils shrank slightly. His arms didn't look like those of an ordinary person at all. The surface of his translucent skin was covered with fish scales, and his blood vessels were clearly visible. Followed by, a horribly deformed head was revealed, and the half-human, half-fish facial features were extremely distorted. Demon, demon, click. The fish monster kept chewing with its mouth, its sharp teeth emitting a cold light, and its eyes were fixed on Shen Lian, because that was delicious blood food. Shen Hansheng's mind went blank. Impossible, how could there be a demon at the bottom of the well? The fish monster had already crawled into the yard. Its belly was bulging high, and a curled-up corpse could be seen inside. Its limbs were extremely skinny. Lianer, be careful. Shen Hansheng's eyes widened, and he quickly reminded Shen Lian, who was still immersed in martial arts practice. The fish demon glanced at Shen Hansheng, not interested in the latter's depleted blood and qi, and then quietly dived into the shallow puddle on the ground. The water was only a finger deep, but the fish demon could shuttle freely in it. Shen Hansheng gritted his teeth, watching as the fish monster came within half a meter of Shen Lian, but his weak body couldn't even climb over the window. Sudden, Shen Lian turned his head belatedly. Another courier has arrived. A monster with 50 years of cultivation, not bad. He took a step forward, and his restrained energy and blood burst out. The breath-holding method made Shen Lian's heartbeat frequency reach its extreme. Boom, 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 suddenly the courtyard was filled with dull drumbeats. Even without using the indestructible bronze body, Shen Lian's body size had increased slightly. Boom. As Shen Hansheng watched in disbelief, the ground in front of Shen Lian sank, and the accumulated water containing the fish monster splashed everywhere. It turns out that someone is making a nest in Yanliang town. The fish monster lost its cover and opened its mouth in surprise. In its eyes, a thin figure was approaching it quickly. The moment it got close, the figure's muscles tensed up and his strength was revealed. Shen Lian's fist smashed heavily into the fish monster's chest. Boom. The ribs collapsed and the broken bone spurs protruded. Quote. The fish demon's expression was almost identical to Shen Hansheng's. Demonic aura filled the air, and sharp claws suddenly grabbed Shen Lian. Instead of thinking that Shen Lian was difficult to deal with, the shallow spiritual intelligence made it even more excited. Eat it, and your Taoism power will greatly increase. The fish monster spewed out thick fog from its mouth, and it was impossible to see clearly what was going on in the courtyard. It moved around as if entering the water, looking for flaws in Shen Lian, and its appearance changed into a strange long-legged fish about 3 or 4 meters in size. Okay, no need to dilly-dally. Shen Lian sneered. The fist turned into a palm, and the yin-yang energy surged into the fish monster's body like rippling water waves. It seemed to have no effect at all, but in fact it had already penetrated deep into its bone marrow. The fish monster bit hard, and its sharp teeth collided with Shen Lian's wrist. A sharp sound similar to that of metal friction was heard. The demonic energy that had always been invincible against mortals was actually defeated. Then, the yin and yang energy was ignited, and incomparable heat burst out. What? The fish demon felt the blood burning and exploded with a huge impact force. Bang bang bang. Shen Lian's fists fell on the fish monster like a violent storm. The angles looked different, but they all landed on the latter's heart. Generally speaking, for ghosts and monsters of the same level, yin-yang energy is obviously more lethal against monsters. Shen Lian grabbed the fish monster's head with one hand, and the fish monster's limbs struggled desperately. Tide strike fist perfect. Boom. Crush the head. Shen Lian casually threw it into the banyan tree hole. While performing the pregnancy ritual, he closed his eyes and sniffed the unique and chilling smell of the monster. Well, there are 7 fish monsters in Xicheng district alone. Shen Lian licked his lips. Compared with the fish monster, he was more interested in how to make a nest. If there were monsters coming to the door continuously, experience would not be a problem. Where's the demon? The demon. The thick fog formed by the evil spirit gradually dissipated, and Shen Hansheng only saw a few traces of blood. Old man, the demon has retreated. I'm going to the government office to report to the Jinwu guards. Well, I'll also have a bowl of plain noodles at the market on the corner. Shen Hansheng didn't know where the monster had gone, but after a brief fight, it was clear that Shen Lian had the upper hand. Could it be that the monster was too inexperienced? Shen Lian walked out of the courtyard slowly. As he walked through the quiet and deserted alleys, his muscles bulged, scales covered his upper body, and his dark golden vertical pupils flickered slightly. Shen Lian grew to nearly 3 meters at a speed visible to the naked eye. The blood vessels exposed on the surface of his skin were metallic in color. How did he look like a human? Chapter 49. You call this a warrior? Shen Lian traveled around Xicheng district, judging the strength of the monsters by the smell they emitted, and found that most of them had only been practicing Taoism for 50 or 60 years. The number of fish monsters is still increasing. I feel like the government is a bit out of control. Or are they planning to raise fish to cause trouble? There was a hint of eagerness in Shen Lian's eyes. The fish monster in Yanliang town was obviously attracted by humans. It was most likely the newly recruited Captain Jinwu guard who wanted to make a fortune from it. He couldn't help but feel restless. Anyone can kill demons, and it is the duty of every citizen to kill demons and eliminate evil. Shen Lian secretly exerted his strength and headed towards the location where the fishy smell was the strongest. If nothing unexpected happened, at least 2 fish monsters would appear. Inside the dilapidated ancestral hall, 20 people led by Zhu Yihong were on high alert. There was a thick fog around them and they could barely detect figures moving around. Zhu Yihong held a fish monster doll woven with hair in her hand. As soon as she locked onto the monster's breath, she would immediately pierce the doll's chest and abdomen with her sword. The fish monster screamed miserably, but its ferocity became more and more intense. Compared with ghosts, monsters have extremely strong vitality. What's more, the fish monsters in the ancestral hall appear in groups, which makes them extremely troublesome. She could see that the other Yamen runners were a little panicked. After all, warriors can hardly fight against demons. Even though the runners had talismans to protect them in the soul-calling case, they still lost their weapons when facing the ghosts. Captain Hong, even if the monsters that attacked us are of low level, if a few more appear, my skills won't be enough to ensure that they can all be wiped out. Understood. Captain Hong gritted his teeth and pointed at 2 senior Yamen runners. Old Chen, Old Li, come with me to seal the well and cut off the monster's water source. Then we can catch the turtle in the jar. It is good. The bailiffs cooperated well with each other, and 2 of them immediately followed Captain Hong with knives in hand. They came to the backyard and took out the stone slabs that had been prepared in advance. The surface of the slabs was covered with talismans, making it difficult for ordinary demonic forces to harm them. Captain Hong shouted loudly, "Master Zhu, cover us." Zhu Yihong twisted the doll's neck without hesitation, and used her internal force to stimulate her hair to transform into chains to bind the doll's limbs. Suddenly, a muffled sound of a fish monster falling to the ground was heard from the side room next door. She breathed a sigh of relief. The fish monsters are scattered all over Yanliang town. It shouldn't be possible. Zhu Yihong suddenly realized that the evil spirit in the air became more turbid, and the rustling noise did not slow down at all. Oh no, there are 3 fish monsters in the ancestral hall. Zhu Yihong hurried to the backyard, but it was obviously too late. She could hear the monster's heavy breathing, and the greed contained in it was beyond words, as it wanted to devour all the blood and food around it. 2 deformed mermaid monsters emerged from the mist. Zhu Yihong released his internal strength, intending to focus on taking out one first. However, what surprised Zhu Yihong was that the fish monster suddenly and impatiently dived back into the water mist before it even got close to Captain Hong and his 2 companions. It seems to give up the blood food that is so close to it. Pat pat pat. Heavy footsteps came from far away. Who? Zhu Yihong felt as if facing a formidable enemy. It was obvious that the person coming was specifically targeting the monster. The aura he exuded was as tangible as substance, and his heart was beating like a drum. Musha. Zhu Yihong frowned slightly. The man did not hide his energy at all. The abundant energy and blood far exceeded that of ordinary warriors, and even caused the mist in the ancestral hall to surge, causing the fish monster to change its target instinctively. A dozen Yamen runners are no match for Shen Lian. That's impossible. Why would a warrior come here to die? Even if he reaches the 5th level of the innate realm, a warrior can only deal with the temptation of demons. Zhu Yihong was speechless before he could finish his words. A nearly 3-meter-tall behemoth broke into the ancestral hall, its entire body covered with rock-hard muscles and its exposed blood vessels glowing with a metallic luster. Hiss. Quote. Zhu Yihong took a breath of cold air. She had never seen a warrior who could achieve inhuman levels of physical training. It was simply unheard of. She herself was the ultimate interpretation of martial arts. At the same time, the other party also has very serious peculiarities. The entire upper body is covered with dense scales, and the eyes have vertical pupils like animals. The reason why Shen Lian dares to act recklessly is because his special abilities can be controlled at will. Even for the Jinwu guards, their special abilities are irreversible. Who can connect the demon-like man in the black coffin with the young master of the pawn shop? Is it horizontal training? And, the breath-holding method of the government? No, he once came to the government office during the soul-calling case, which means his special ability did not affect his intelligence. How did he do that? Before Zhu Yihong could investigate further, Shen Lian had already broken down the door of the ancestral hall. His heartbeat reached its peak and he slammed his fist heavily on the ground. Boom boom boom. Zhu Yihong stood there in a daze. The ground was broken into pieces, and the dust raised directly dispersed the water mist. Kill. The moment the fish monster was exposed, Shen Lian used his breath-holding technique to the extreme. His skin turned red, and the yin and yang energy around his body turned into faint blue fire. Use your palm as a knife. The fish monster's face looked ferocious, as if it wanted to taste the delicious blood. As a result, the next moment, the fish monster's spine was bent 180 degrees, and the hot yin and yang energy made its internal organs sizzle. There were a few scratches on Shen Lian's shoulders, but only the scales were broken, and the skin was intact. Captain Hong's legs went weak and he shouted in disbelief, "It's the Black Coffin Man." Shen Lian's right hand swung like a windmill. Boom! The limbs and head of the other fish monster were directly embedded in its body, and the sound of its bones breaking neatly made the onlookers shudder. Shen Lian kicked the wall to pieces and chased after the last fish monster that was fleeing in panic. A warrior, really a warrior. Zhu Yihong murmured to himself. Shen Lian completely overturned his understanding of martial arts. Isn't it true that the only way to fight against demons is to use internal strength? How did the Black Coffin Man do it? Zhu Yihong secretly assessed his chances of fighting the man with the black coffin. Cold sweat dripped down her forehead. She felt that she only had one chance. After all, the man in the black coffin could get close to her in an instant. Without any defensive weapon, it was simply unrealistic to protect her vital points with her internal strength. Logically speaking, given the Black Coffin Man's peculiarities, it is impossible for him to hide in Yanliang town. Shen Lian grabbed the surviving fish monster by the neck and walked slowly towards the crowd. The neck was broken with a snap, and blood dripped from the fingertips. There was clearly demonic energy corroding the flesh and blood, but Shen Lian did not react at all. Everyone is on pins and needles. Shen Lian picked up the other two pieces of flesh that could not be called corpses, then jumped away with force and disappeared, with spider web-like cracks spreading. Captain Hong swallowed his saliva and asked cautiously, "Master Zhu, since the Black Coffin Man has intervened, what should we do?" Zhu Yihong said in a deep voice, "Let's see how the captain reacts. It's hard to say whether the man in the black coffin is an alchemist, but his strength is extraordinary." She took out the communication talisman, but it was dim. Not good. Mind transmission talisman, 2 pieces are included in a set and need to be refined by the blood of the Jinwu guards. Yang Weikang might have been in danger, otherwise the talisman would not have lost its effect. Zhu Yihong sucked in a breath of cold air and looked up at the deep and endless darkness. Ever since the 1,000-year-old demon appeared, Yanliang town was filled with danger. Chapter 50, 9-Eared Demon. It's obviously Di Ting. As sunset approaches, Yang Weikang could sense unusual movements in the wells where fish food was placed, which showed that the fish monsters in the underground river had taken the bait. It seems to be going very smoothly. As long as we clear out the fish monster 3 or 4 times in a row, we will not only be able to obtain a large number of gallbladders, but we can also report the monster to the higher authorities and have it stay in Yanliang town for a long time. Hee. That damn place called Gao Village probably has more than 1,000-year-old demon. Even the Jinwu guards can't figure it out. If I go there, I'll just die. In the territory of the Tang Dynasty, places where demons gather in groups are called Dongfu. As a cave residence recognized by the imperial court, Gao Laozhuang is unimaginably dangerous. Coming. The apricot branches above Yang Weikang's head emitted bursts of smoke. The smoke and dust turned into a hazy picture, and vaguely one could see that it was the Shen family pawnshop. The bait that had been set up earlier had attracted the attention of the demon. An hour earlier than expected. Yang Weikang looked at Shen Lian, who was practicing martial arts in the courtyard, with a look of pity. His talent in martial arts is indeed good. He is a good candidate for being a top-notch blood food. Yang Weikang narrowed his eyes and started to leave the yamen, intending to see if the situation was as expected, that there was an unscrupulous alchemist behind the pawnshop. Ah! The cry of birds interrupted Yang Weikang's thoughts. Yang Weikang swept through the smoke and dust and found a crow on the eaves of the pawnshop. The crow was looking straight at him, as if it had sensed the secret technique. He remembered seeing similar crows when he was setting bait before. Yang Weikang didn't care and quickened his pace towards the pawnshop. In a moment of distraction, the crow in the smoke and dust disappeared, and then something happened that made Yang Weikang shudder. Ah! Yang Weikang heard with his own ears the exact same cry sounding beside him. He had no time to care about the fish monster. He looked around nervously and found that the strange crow had come to a tree branch not far away. To know, the Shen family pawnshop was a whole city away from the government office. Half a breath, how can a bird cross a city area? Ah, call me Master Ba. The starling howled with glee, and then disappeared from Yang Weikang's sight. The latter stopped where he was, as if facing a great enemy. Yang Weikang's pupils shrank slightly. Although nothing had happened, he was trembling all over, as if he was about to face something indescribable. Ah! Yang Weikang glanced at the alley beside the government office and saw endless black air surging out, with huge blood-red pupils revealed. Demon, demon. Only then did Yang Weikang realize that the big demon that Zhu Yihong mentioned was real. The nine-eared demon stuck his head out. After being promoted to the nine-eared earth disgusting demon, the most obvious change was his head, which was surrounded by scattered black smoke. Like a lion or tiger with 9 ears. Yang Weikang fell into a trance and thought of an ancient demon recorded in the court books. In ancient times, there was a strange beast that could distinguish all things in the world by listening to their sounds. It had 9 chi, a tiger head, a single horn, dog ears, a dragon body, a lion tail, and unicorn feet. It's called Didi listening. The 9-eared demon in front of him only possessed some of the characteristics of Di Ting, which made Yang Weikang not have the slightest thought of fighting against it. Run away. Yang Weikang pulled out the apricot branch, and his internal energy poured into it, and his body rotted in the blink of an eye. The 9-eared demon lowered its head and smelled it slightly, then returned to the body of the starling with a bit of disdain. The starling was not in a hurry to chase it, but combed its feathers leisurely. At the same time, an apricot tree in the South City district began to shake for no reason. The trunk of the tree cracked and blood oozed out from the gap. Then, withered arms pushed open the bark and Yang Weikang came back to life after pretending to be dead. Fortunately, I have a trick up my sleeve. We must get away from Yanliang town as soon as possible. Yang Weikang endured the pain, used his inner strength to stop the damage to his organs, made sure that his breath was not leaking out at all, and planned to leave immediately. We must let the government cause civil unrest in the city. It doesn't matter if some warriors die. Can tens of thousands of people in Yanliang town be more important than 100 households? Yang Weikang reached his hand into his throat. The secret technique, strange stomach method, can form a storage space in the stomach, which contains talismans for transmitting thoughts. The sound of loosening soil continued. When Yang Weikang looked up, he saw dense tree roots sprouting from various cracks, some of which had already wrapped around his ankles. The roots continued to spread, piercing into the flesh, blood and bones, blocking the strange stomach method. Tree demon. Yang Weikang's chest heaved violently. The second demon had only been around for 500 or 600 years, but its roots spread throughout Yanliang town, meaning there was no way for him to escape. The memory of going to the pawn shop flashed through his mind. There seemed to be a lush banyan tree in the corner of the wall. It turned out, it was also a demon. No no no. Yang Weikang covered his forehead in despair, and pulled out his feet that were gradually being pulled into the ground. Suddenly, a layer of flesh fell off, and his bones were exposed. He ran in panic and came to a busy street. Help me! Help me! Yang Weikang noticed with horror that the people turned a blind eye and no one paid any attention to him even though he shouted at the top of his lungs. The atmosphere was extremely weird. Yang Weikang fell to the ground and saw the shadows of everyone's feet began to lengthen, and a hideous bloody mouth covered the block. The third demon, a demon with 1,000 years of cultivation. He looked down and found that his own shadow was no exception. Ha ha ha, I know. Yanliang town is also a cave inhabited by demons, a cave that is no less powerful than Gaolaozhuang. As they entered the town, they were no longer in control of themselves. The 3 demons were watching secretly and protecting the warrior named Shen Lian. No, he couldn't be a warrior. How can a warrior be protected by demons? And the 3 demons are obviously hiding themselves. It feels more like what is recorded in the classics. The protector. Click click click. He swallowed Yang Weikang in big mouthfuls, and after chewing for a while, his expression became distorted. These living people who practiced the devil's internal skills were too disgusting to eat. It simply threw the residue to the banyan tree, which ate both meat and vegetables. Shen Lian worked all night and harvested a total of 13 fish monster corpses, which directly increased the experience progress of the corpse Taoist to over 20%. The points reached 24. I feel refreshed. I, Shen Lian, love to do good things. Shen Lian returned to the pawn shop and stretched contentedly. The banyan tree has already sprouted flower buds. After a day and a night, we will be able to harvest batches of fish fruits. The impact on the warrior is just around the corner. Shen Lian was afraid that the fish would be eaten by passing birds, so he lay down in the yard to rest, concentrating on tempering the heart acupoint with the breath-holding technique. And many more. He frowned slightly. He didn't know when a strange fruit appeared on the branch of the banyan tree. It looked like a shriveled stomach, swaying in the wind. What strange thing did the starling throw into the tree hole? The corners of Shen Lian's eyes kept twitching, knowing full well the starling's ability to stir up trouble. He used his keen eyes to check. Isogastric fruit. Born from the banyan tree, the flesh is useless to eat, and the core is used as storage space. My dear, you are really smart. Shen Lian removed the pulp, and the core that looked like a stomach stone came into view. After several attempts, his strength sensed a space of 1 cubic meter. What the hell, the style of the storage bags in this world is so novel. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 51. Sure enough, the Jinwu guards are still wealthy. The myna bird landed on the courtyard wall and stared at Shen Lian, who was secretly delighted with his unearned gain, as if he was looking at the stupid son of a landlord, his eyes full of contempt. Go, go, go. Shen Lian drove the starling away and secretly played with the fruit core. I have to admit that although the fruit core has a strange style, it can be considered a storage device, even though it only has 1 cubic meter of space. I didn't expect the ability to conceive is so comprehensive. Shen Lian tried to take it out and ingest it, and found that the energy consumed depended on the size of the object. 1 cubic meter is enough, but the material of the fruit core is relatively fragile. It is easy to be damaged if you carry it with you. Otherwise, you can put it in your stomach. Shen Lian shuddered, not daring to imagine the scene of reaching into the stomach to take something out. Just for a moment, he actually had the urge to swallow the fruit core into his stomach and store it. After all, he could communicate with strength at any time, which seemed very convenient no matter how he looked at it. But after coming to his senses, Shen Lian slapped himself. Snapped. Take a rope and tie it to the handle of the bone blade. Just be careful on weekdays. Shen Lian's consciousness swept across the storage space, and the career panel revealed information. The apricot blossom demon has been triggered, and the necessary conditions are missing and the job cannot be taken. Another special profession. It seems that there is also a demonic internal skill in the fruit core. Shen Lian was not surprised. To practice internal skills, one needs to visualize pictures of demons. It seems that the Jinwu guards all have the habit of carrying the fundamental skills with them. He didn't have to spend much effort to find a palm-sized tree root, at the bottom of which was engraved the demon's internal energy chasing flowers sutra. Once one enters the stage of chasing the flowers sutra, the Jinwu guards will be able to develop the apricot blossom body and practice the secret arts of the illusion Tao. The Niwajing is also good at escaping from the shell. By transplanting blood vessels into the apricot tree, a suspended dead body was created in the heart of the tree, allowing the consciousness to escape when necessary. Of course, the price is that most of the internal strength is lost. Shen Lian looked at the visualization picture of the chasing flower sutra. A half-human, half-demon apricot tree towers into the sky, with branches covered with strange and inexplicable stamens in full bloom, shaped like a woman's face. Apricot. Quote. Shen Lian thought for a moment before realizing the demon represented by the flower-chasing sutra. Xingxian, a monster transformed from plants, is one of the tree monsters in the 52nd difficulty Mushanan. In the original work, he was killed by Zhu Baji with a rake. Looking at the entire world of Journey to the West, Xingxian can only be regarded as a supporting role, but his Taoism is definitely not shallow. Shen Lian naturally looked down on the Xinghua demon. Firstly, it did not fit his image as a tough guy, and secondly, the magical power she awakened was most likely related to illusion. It should take 10 points to get a fourth job, so you have to be careful. Shen Lian had already guessed that the strange stomach fruit came from the Centurion Jinwu guards who had just settled in Yanliang town. The latter had a special feature on their heads that was similar to apricot flowers. Could it be that Bai who played with fire and got burned, and was targeted by a highly skilled fish demon? The Centurion should still be alive. With the flower-driving sutra, it will be difficult for him to die. Shen Lian looked at the well in the corner. The remaining demonic energy in it had disappeared, but the claw marks of the fish monster could still be seen on the edge. The underground river connects to the tributary of the Bibotan Lake. Do the Jinwu guards really think that the fish monster is a fool who can come and go at will? Shen Lian felt that the fish monster would not give up. The fish disaster is far from over, last night was just the beginning. The large-scale nesting is telling the monsters that Yanliang town is rich in blood and food. Fortunately, ordinary baits will not attract fish monsters with too high skills. Shen Lian can use this opportunity to do more good deeds and promote all the corpse Taoists and sharp-toothed warriors as soon as possible. Shen Lian took out the miscellaneous objects from the fruit core. All the bottles and jars are empty, as if they once contained powerful medicines, but they had turned into nutrients when the banyan tree was nurturing the elixir fruit. Strange stomach method. Shen Lian noticed the secret book of the Jinwu guard's practice at a glance. He couldn't help but become interested and leaned against the banyan tree to read it. After he patiently read the entire book, his expression became extremely strange. The steps of the different stomach method are to refine the special storage magic tool into one's own stomach and intestines. Once it is cultivated, one can no longer eat ordinary food. Do you want to spend 10 points to master the different stomach method? Cancel. Perhaps the secret arts that come with the demon's internal strength have drawbacks, which requires a large amount of points to be consumed on the profession panel, and the cost effectiveness is really not high. Shen Lian's huge stomach and nourishing food are the foundation of his life. It is impossible for him to destroy his innate holy body. The more demonic secrets the Jinwu guards master, the more inhuman they are. How can they have the ultimate purity of martial arts that I pursue? Shen Lian no longer held out hope. It was already good enough that he could obtain a storage magic tool. As a result, he discovered that there was actually a book on horizontal training martial arts inside. Reverse blood skill. The blood reversal technique is a superior horizontal training that tempers the blood vessels throughout the body and can purify the blood in the body. When the blood reversal technique is mastered, even if the blood vessels are damaged, they can heal quickly. That centurion practiced the blood reversal technique in order to cooperate with the flower-chasing sutra's suspended death and resurrection. Otherwise, every time his own blood vessels are stripped, he will have to rely on powerful medicine to recover from the injuries. Shen Lian was overjoyed. The blood reversal technique belongs to the internal martial arts, and because the blood vessels do not involve acupoints, it is far less difficult than the breath-holding method. As expected of Master Ba, even when picking up trash, he is still so pure and unworldly. After Shen Lian sorted out the storage space, apart from the secret manuals on martial arts, the rest were all yellow paper, cinnabar and other things of unknown value. He examined them one by one and took out 3 blood-stained copper coins. Ghost copper plate appraisal completed, 9 Chi earthly aversion experience plus 0.01%. Ghost copper plate. Made by Jinwu guards, a medium for traveling between the first 3 levels of the ghost market. Nice one. Shen Lian couldn't help but let out a strange laugh. The Corpse Transformation Sutra mentioned that the ghost market had many layers, but to go deeper one had to constantly experience transactions. The ghost copper plate is obviously a shortcut that the Jinwu guards have been researching for many years. Unfortunately, a ghost copper coin has lost its function due to identification, but there are 2 chances to enter and exit the 3rd floor of the ghost market, which is enough to make a lot of money. If the ghost market opens as usual in the middle of next month, I will take my starling with me to have a look no matter what. Even if the ghost market is on the 3rd floor, the lifespan of the ransom ghosts is about 500 years. Shen Lian emptied the storage space of useless objects and burned them all to ashes. After he worked hard for a day, the fish fruits were completely ripe. Perhaps it was because the fish monster was very powerful. There were 15 fruits on the branch. A faint medicinal fragrance permeates the courtyard. The starling came over with its wings flapping, gazing at the fish with eager eyes. Shen Lian used all his strength, moving around the banyan tree, blocking the starling with his left hand and picking fish fruits with his right hand. My dear, you can't eat danguo carelessly. It's not easy for you to digest because of your weak body. Stupid. The starling pecked Shen Lian's head, then landed on the banyan tree and built a bird's nest. The corner of Shen Lian's mouth twitched. The starling looked like it must not be missed in the future, and it was clearly waiting for the next batch of elixirs. You're planting vegetables on this farm and stealing them. Shen Lian carefully put the fruit core into the fruit and threw a fish fruit into his mouth. Take fish fruit, sharp-toothed warrior experience plus 0.47%. After eating all the fish fruits, the sharp-toothed warrior can reach 60%. If the fish monsters are really endless, promotion is only a matter of time. Shen Lian did not waste nutrients and immediately began to practice the blood reversal technique. Chapter 52. Increase the dosage and become a warrior. Getting started with the blood reversal technique is very simple. It involves taking specific medicines to allow your blood to flow backwards, thereby using this strength to temper your blood vessels. Shen Lian has the breath-holding method, so he shouldn't need any drastic medicine to reverse the blood flow. He closed his eyes and tried it a few times, and found that the breath-holding method could indeed interfere with the blood flow, but it seemed a bit forced before it was fully mastered. Call. Shen Lian had a premonition. The foundation he had accumulated in the fourth stage of foundation building was already sufficient. When he mastered the blood reversal technique, he would be able to naturally step into the realm of a warrior. In order to break through the bottleneck as soon as possible, Shen Lian became ambitious, contrary to his usual behavior. Well, he chose to spend most of his time lying in the courtyard with his eyes closed to temper his heart acupoints, and even cancelled the occasional free time for boxing practice. In the eyes of the servants, the young master just spends the whole day basking in the sun aimlessly. Shen Hansheng had no time to take care of Shen Lian. After his body recovered almost completely, he focused on sorting out the account book details of the pawnshop for the past 6 months. 3 days passed by in a blink of an eye. Dong dong dong. The dull sound of drums echoed in the pawn shop. Shen Lian opened his eyes with satisfaction. His heartbeat became more regular, countless blue veins popped out on the surface of his skin, and his blood flowed rapidly. Kangara Dacheng. With my talent, practicing horizontal training is easy. I can achieve minor success in 1 day and major success in 3 days. I'm afraid it will only take about 10 days to complete it. Shen Lian stretched lazily, and his fist created a gust of wind out of thin air. In the government, breath-holding is a life-threatening martial art that requires one to exert one's strength. For Shen Lian, there is no harm in maintaining a high heart rate for a long time. After Shen Lian adapted to Dacheng's breath-holding method, he immediately chose to try to master the reverse blood technique. First, the heartbeat is stopped, and then the blood is pushed in the opposite direction. The yin and yang energy is mixed in the blood and flows through the blood vessels throughout the body. Hiss. Quote. Shen Lian took a breath of cold air. He suddenly felt as if he was possessed, his body temperature began to soar, and thick fog enveloped the courtyard. Fortunately, the blood reversing skill was vaguely visible on the profession panel, proving that there was nothing wrong. Shen Lian did not dare to delay and threw 2 fish into his mouth. The surging nutrients acted on his blood, and his blood tended to boil. Others would never be able to imagine how chaotic Shen Lian's practice was. It seems that he is just entering the stage of learning the blood reversal technique, but in fact it is not the case. While building the foundation and refining the blood, one also has to temper the acupoints of the breath-holding method, and then maintain the blood flow backwards, practicing the 3 martial arts together. He even had the leisure to pay attention to the trouble caused by the fish monster. Shen Lian was fully focused in the previous breath, but in the next breath he couldn't help swallowing his saliva, and realized that there was another fish monster appearing in the dark of Yanliang town. The government office had made arrangements in advance, and the monster was killed in a moment. It's a pity that if I hadn't been in seclusion, I would have had to intervene in everything. I guess they would be fish monsters with 70 or 80 years of cultivation, and they would be very tonic. Shen Lian suppressed his distracting thoughts. It was already late at night, so he returned to his room to continue his extreme body training. As the blood flow rate reaches its maximum, blood inevitably seeps out of the pores, but it is evaporated by the body temperature in the blink of an eye and turned into a layer of blood stains. Ah! Upon seeing this, the myna bird spit out black air from its mouth that wrapped around the room, and then continued to watch the show from the side. Shen Lian was very close to the warrior, and was stuck at the bottleneck, unable to move. He simply swallowed 2 more fish fruits and increased the dosage. His thinking logic is completely different from that of ordinary warriors. What is this? It doesn't exist. If there is no breakthrough, it means that the dosage is not enough. There is no need to fear going astray when practicing the innate holy body. Boom! Like a surging river, the blood stretches open the narrow blood vessels. Finally, the blood vessels unknowingly contained some yin and yang energy. Reverse blood skill, first look. Shen Lian laughed strangely. Good things happened one after another. The introduction to reverse blood was just the beginning. The breath-holding method gradually reached the realm of perfection. The heart became 40% larger than that of an ordinary person and took on a purple-red color. Click click click. Cracks were spreading across the tea bowl, and the sound of the heartbeat seemed real. Question mark. Kuhan, perfection. Well, I think it's because my foundation is too strong, so I'm always a little short. It's just right. I can promote it directly through the synthesis of horizontal training. I have to step into the warrior stage today, otherwise it will seriously affect my ability to eat fish and muddle through. Do you want to consume 3 points to combine the indestructible bronze body and the breath-holding technique? Determine. The immortal bronze body is the ultimate external training. When the internal training method of holding the breath is integrated into it, Shen Lian's body can be completely integrated inside and out. As Shen Lian breathed, his flesh, blood, and bones expanded and shrank continuously. The floor made a sound of being overwhelmed. Shen Lian quickly suppressed his horizontal training. You know, before he integrated the breath-holding technique, he could transform into a 3-meter giant by using the immortal bronze body. Now, he felt that if he couldn't control his strength, the wing room would easily collapse. Shen Lian gritted his teeth, and while attacking the warrior, he tried his best to suppress his horizontal training, and his heartbeat slowly returned to normal. The skin, flesh, bones and blood exude a faint yin and yang energy. The warrior has been accomplished. When qi and blood reach the peak of the 4th stage of foundation building, the body no longer rejects strength, which means that after strength is infused into each part, it can be comparable to a weapon. Shen Lian used his concentration to stabilize the yin and yang energy, and the next step was the 5 and 8 realms. After working hard for more than half a year, I finally arrived at the starting point of the demon's internal strength. The 5 and 8 realms are divided into the eye root stage, ear root stage, tongue root stage, nose root stage, and sense root stage, and require the tempering of the meridians related to the 5 senses. Shen Lian summoned the career panel. Question mark. Shen Lian. Realm. Innate, eye root. Martial arts. Yin-yang Tai Chi posture, tide flame, unknown horizontal training, bronze body, reverse blood skill, first glimpse, tide strike fist, perfect. Question mark. Points. 21. Level 0.04 occupation. 9 Chi earth hatred %. Second level occupation. Sharp-toothed warrior, 57.85%. First level occupation. Corpse Taoist, 22.78%. Let's still call it the indestructible bronze body. After all, the characteristics of the horizontal training have not changed qualitatively. Shen Lian yawned, and distracted himself with controlling the yin and yang energy flowing into the meridians around his eyes, wanting to try his hand at practicing the 5 and 8 realms. He has not yet figured out the exact location of the eye meridian, but that doesn't matter. His physical strength is there, so there is no need to worry about damage to the meridians. Kindness. Shen Lian frowned slightly. He felt the yin and yang energy touching his meridians and being consumed faster than he had imagined. The yin-yang Tai Chi stance is quite effective against demons, but the effect of tempering the meridians is obviously not as good as expected. It consumes a lot of energy, which means that the nutrients of the fish fruit must be focused on replenishing energy. Shen Lian realized that the main problem lies with the technique. 99% of warriors will not practice the 5 and 8 realms, which means that the stance method is not suitable for tempering the 5 sense meridians at all. The 5 and 8 realms are realms created for the internal strength of demons. No, I have to learn some advanced stances and integrate them into the Tai Chi Yin-Yang stance. Otherwise, the efficiency of this practice will be wasted on many fish fruits. There must be a lot of top-notch martial arts secrets on the 3rd floor of Ghost Market. According to the records in the Corpse Transformation Sutra, the 3rd floor of the Ghost Market is no longer an independent space. The Ghost Markets in 4 towns can lead to the same 3rd floor. The Ghost Market in Yanliang Town, the Ghost Market in Daqi Town, the Ghost Market in Kangshan Town, and the Ghost Market in Gaojia Town. Chapter 53, A Lian, the distinguished guest of the Ghost Market. Time quietly came to the 15th day of the next month. Ever since the Ghost Market in Yanliang Town was closed, there were finally signs of it reopening. That night, an extremely strong sense of resentment gathered on Lanshan Street. Only, because of the previous troubles caused by demons, very few warriors went to the Ghost Market. Zhu Yihong's face was solemn. He couldn't help feeling a little nervous as he stood at the entrance of the Ghost Market. After all, he had witnessed a 1,000-year-old demon there before. The fish disaster never ends. Ever since the underground river was used to lure the fish monster, Yanliang town has never been peaceful, with fish monsters appearing every now and then to attack people. Although the fish demon has only been practicing for a few decades, it is clearly appearing more and more frequently. In addition, Yang Weikang is missing. If the fish disaster is not dealt with, it will only continue to worsen. Zhu Yihong planned to seal several wells with talismans first, and then eradicate the fish disaster case, after the court had dealt with the affairs of Gao Laozhuang. By the way, did Yang Weikang die because of the Great Demon? Well, forget it. The Jinwu guards will investigate it later anyway. Zhu Yihong took a deep breath and thought to himself, fortunately the ghost market has reopened, otherwise I don't know when the resources allocated by the Jinwu guard will arrive. There is definitely no talisman for sealing on the first floor of the ghost market. We can only go to the second floor. She took out a ghost copper coin and could see that there was not much blood left on the copper coin, indicating that she had used it to go deep into the ghost market many times. As soon as Zhu Yihong stepped into the ghost market, he felt the burning gazes cast at him. Whether it was the lonely ghosts holding up plaques or the ransomed ghosts selling items, all of them showed uncontrollable greed on their faces. Ghost copper plate is a product refined by the Jinwu guards after they compromised with the ghost market. The resentment contained in it is a great tonic for ghosts. Zhu Yihong mobilized his internal energy and stared directly at the true form of the ghost. They desperately tore at the chains that bound them, muttering me repeatedly, unable to resist the temptation of the ghost copper coin. What kind of existence can create a ghost market? Zhu Yihong suppressed all distracting thoughts and handed the ghost copper coin to a less powerful ransom ghost. Click click click. When the chain fell off, the ransom ghost carefully took the ghost copper coin and held it on the tip of his tongue, while the other stall owners were unwilling and hysterical. Guest officer. The money ransom ghost approached Zhu Yihong, sniffing his blood hungrily. The chain suddenly tightened, and the ransom ghost's neck made a crackling sound, and he couldn't help but scream, as if the ghost market was warning him to pay attention to the rules. Sir, follow me. The ransom ghost came to the corner of the ghost market, and his resentment built an iron door leading to the second floor. Zhu Yihong was immersed in it. The ransom ghost continued to absorb the resentment of the ghost copper coin until Zhu Yihong returned to the first floor, and then the ghost copper coin could be returned to its original owner. It can at least help improve your cultivation by 3 to 4 years. If the resentment contained in the ghost copper plate was exhausted and Zhu Yihong didn't have time to leave, he could still get a piece of flesh and blood. At this moment, all the money ransoming ghosts rioted again for no reason. They discovered that another person entered the ghost market holding a ghost copper plate, and the person's blood and energy were extremely full, which was definitely delicious blood food. Dong dong dong. The money ransom ghosts had strange expressions on their faces and walked with heavy footsteps from afar to near. They felt something was wrong because the figure behind the door was unusually large, bringing an invisible sense of suffocation and oppression. The lonely ghost tied to the door hid in the corner and dared not move. As a demon, the lonely ghost actually had an inexplicable fear of the figure, as if the other party was not a human at all. Shen Lian walked out of the shadows, and the starling hid in his loose robes. Why do they look like they've seen a ghost? They are so surprised by what they have never seen before. Don't they know what a pure warrior is? His body was more than 3 meters long, his taut muscles were metallic in color, and the scales covering his upper body emitted bursts of cold light. The yin and yang forces surround his body, and a faint blue flame is faintly visible. When the ransom ghosts calmed down, they would inevitably become restless again. How could a demon resist a warrior with dozens of times more blood? The ghosts who had seen the 9-eared demon were all scared to death. Some wandering ghosts couldn't help but come closer. Boom! Shen Lian punched hard, and the yin-yang force rushed towards him. What? Quote. The lonely ghosts were shrouded in phantom fire. The power of yin and yang was a terrifying killing weapon that was invincible against ghosts that had been practicing for 2 or 3 years. In a moment, the lonely ghost turned into ashes. Yes, the refining of qi and blood by the blood reversal technique can enhance the power of yin and yang. Even if the wisdom eye is not used, ordinary ghosts will find it difficult to withstand the burning of the hot qi and blood. The ransom ghosts looked at each other, their expressions gradually distorted by fear and greed. Shen Lian glanced at the career panel nonchalantly. Reverse blood skill, great mastery. He walked into the ghost market and strolled among the stalls openly. Later, a few warriors came to the ghost market, but they dared not stay. The shocking shadow seemed to cover most of the street. Shen Lian was leisurely for a long time, but he only found 2 complete volumes of middle and lower level. It would be a waste of points to use them for synthesis, so he didn't consider it. Then he took out the ghost copper plate. According to the Corpse Transformation Sutra, there should be ransom ghosts eager to lead the way, but the ghost market remained dead silent. Who's coming? After a while, a fortune-giving ghost with nearly 100 years of experience could no longer resist his appetite. I quote, "Okay, just you." The ransom ghost took the ghost copper coin and instinctively stared at Shen Lian. Shen Lian chuckled and patted the money ransom ghost on the shoulder. "Forget it. You don't look very smart." Appraisal completed, 9 Yan experience plus 0.02%. Ah. The ransom ghost was stunned for a moment, and then turned to ashes uncontrollably. The scattered resentment penetrated into Shen Lian's mouth and nose, making the surrounding ghosts terrified. "You." Shen Lian casually pointed at a ransom ghost, which began to tremble. No matter how reluctant he was, facing the threat of death, the ransom ghost still picked up the ghost copper plate and staggered to the wall. Iron gate formed. The money ransom ghost didn't dare to absorb the resentment in the ghost copper coin at all, and just held it in his hand. Shen Lian was not worried about the ransom ghost turning against him. Unless he returned to the first floor of the ghost market, the iron gate for entry and exit would always exist. Such are the rules of the ghost market. At least in the first 3 levels, living people have a higher priority than ghosts. Even if Shen Lian eliminated all the ransom ghosts on the first floor of the ghost market in Yanliang town would only be closed for 1 or 2 months. What a pity. With your level of skills, your experience is too scarce. Not to mention that I'm not interested, even Starling is too lazy to make a move. Stupid. Shen Lian swept across the street, and the ghosts couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines, feeling an unspeakable malice, as if they had walked through the gates of hell. He stepped into the darkness. Behind the door was a cold and damp tunnel filled with resentment. Scarlet rusty water seeped out from the cracks in the wall tiles. A few minutes later, Shen Lian came to the end of the tunnel, and his career panel suddenly reacted. He thought that some special profession had been triggered again, but after seeing the prompt information, he was stunned on the spot, feeling creepy. Chapter 54, Gao Laozhuang is a blessed place. Take pork, sharp-toothed warrior experience plus 0.09%. Take pork, sharp-toothed warrior experience plus 0.07%. Is there a reason why experience points increase automatically? Shen Lian's pupils shrank slightly. Although he hadn't eaten anything, he felt inexplicably full in his stomach, and there was a prompt on the occupation panel every 2 or 3 breaths. If something goes wrong, there must be a demon. Shen Lian immediately chose to restrain his own qi and blood, causing his heart rate to drop sharply and his huge body to return to normal. He even looked a little thin due to muscle atrophy. Shen Lian changed into suitable clothes, and the Mina bird could only stand on his shoulder. He was very disgusted with the restlessness of his mount Lian. Walk carefully and don't get startled. Silly bird. Shen Lian was too lazy to pay attention to the starling and quickly used yin-yang power to seal his mouth and nose. As a result, the experience of the sharp-toothed warrior continued to accumulate. Obviously, there is something different in the deep ghost market. Shen Lian arrived at the tunnel entrance, and the completely different second floor of the ghost market came into view. The streets are brightly lit. The ghost market has become similar to a spring festival market, with lanterns hanging everywhere, the aroma of all kinds of delicious food, and the constant calls of vendors. All the ransom ghosts had the same expression, with stiff and exaggerated smiles, and greasy and shiny skin, as if they were cast from the same mold. Shen Lian wiped his right eye with the eye-clearing talisman water and couldn't help but gasp. The streets were in a dilapidated state, and the hanging lanterns turned out to be pig heads with blood dripping from their necks, attracting a large number of flies buzzing around. As for the ghost of ransom, without exception, these ghosts became abnormally bloated, somewhat similar to guinea pigs, and the resentment in their bodies was extremely turbid. Pig. Shen Lian was facing a formidable enemy. The third floor of the ghost market was connected to 4 towns. It was possible that during the 2 months when the ghost market in Yanliang town was closed, some powerful demons from other towns had sneaked in. Hiss, what kind of demon is this? Even if you are on the 3rd floor of the ghost market, the leaked resentment can still affect the 2nd floor. Shen Lian muttered to himself, Gaojia Town, Pig. Once you connect the two, a familiar place name comes to mind. Gao Village. The Gao Village where Zhu Baji got married. The big demon territory that old man Shen accidentally entered, couldn't it also be Gao Village? Shen Lian licked his dry lips, feeling the urge to turn around and run away. The starling, on the other hand, shook its head excitedly and quacked. The big demon on the third floor of Ghost Market should not be Zhu Baji. Shen Lian calmed down. The aura of a 1,000-year-old demon will indeed affect the environment, but since the giant stomach food supplement can smoothly digest the resentment, it means that the third-level demon will definitely not be more than 2,000 years old. Shen Lian breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time he also realized the horror of the 1,000-year-old demon. You know, giant stomach food's digestive ability is now a bottomless pit, and ordinary food can't make him feel full at all. I was within the range of the 1,000-year-old demon's resentment, and I almost got full from a distance. Ordinary warriors would probably have their intestines ripped open in a moment upon arriving at the second floor of the Ghost Market. Even the Jinwu guards who possessed demonic physiques could not avoid damage to their internal organs. After all, the pork and meat that appeared in their stomachs carried resentment. Hiccup. Shen Lian let out a long burp. Sharp-toothed warrior reaches 60.04%, martial arts points +2. Sooner or later I'll have to go to Gao Laozhuang to take a look. If I can get experience by hanging up, I'll definitely hang out there for a dozen years. Gao Laozhuang is a blessed place. Shen Lian looked regretful. With his current cultivation level, staying in the Ghost Market for too long would easily lead to trouble. Otherwise, he would have to gather enough experience points to advance to the sharp-toothed warrior. The Mina bird was looking at the second floor of the Ghost Market eagerly. To be more precise, it was obviously interested in the big demon on the third floor. Master Ba, please don't mess around. We are all honest businessmen. Once we enter the Ghost Market, we must abide by the rules and not harm any plants or trees. Shen Lian secretly regretted bringing the stupid bird with him. It was even harder to manage than a husky. There may be strangers on the second floor of the Ghost Market. To prevent being exposed, you should stay in the tunnel, Brother Mina. And help me keep an eye on the entrances and exits. Shen Lian reluctantly took out a fish fruit. Deal. The starling stopped making noise and flew to the corner with the fish in its mouth. After Shen Lian gave repeated instructions, he continued to maintain his qi and blood at a level that was neither present nor absent, and then plunged into the bustling second floor of the Ghost Market. Not long after he left, the starling became lonely. Blood-red eyes flickered in the tunnel. The starling laughed strangely, stuffed the elixir fruit into the gap between the bricks, and spewed out a constant stream of black gas to act on the fish fruit. Click click click. The fish fruit slowly shrank and cracks appeared on the surface. A tender bud that looked like a bone grew out, and in just a few breaths it turned into a sapling. Then, countless vines spread between the ground and the wall. The bricks turned into bones, forming a bone door leading to the third floor of the Ghost Market. In heaven and on earth, I am the only one who is supreme. Rolling black air poured into the bone gate. Faintly, one could see a demon with a tiger head and 9 ears flash by. The bone saplings grew quickly until they completely enveloped the tunnel. The banyan tree was unable to intervene despite its power, but it could still cover up a few areas. The eldest brother causes trouble, the second brother protects the master, and the third brother assists. Shen Lian looked back belatedly and saw that the tunnel was still deep and boundless. He then turned his attention to the stalls on both sides of the street. Because of the dullness of his qi and blood, the wealth-redeeming ghost did not pay too much attention to himself. Mina bird is very sensible. Next time there are fish fruits, give it a few more. Shen Lian naturally enjoyed his leisure time. In fact, he had originally planned to maintain his indestructible bronze body throughout the whole process, use his qi and blood to deal with ghosts, and kill a few more blind ghosts to liven up the fun. Now keep a low profile. Not long after, Shen Lian found 3 martial arts secrets that met his expectations. Not to mention, the quality of the martial arts secrets on the second floor of the Ghost Market is indeed much higher. Not only are they not damaged, most of them are mid-level martial arts. It is hard to imagine, since the second floor already sells upper-middle level martial arts, what kind of precious secret manuals can be found if one goes deeper into the Ghost Market. Shen Lian was not in a hurry to buy, for fear that the transaction would cause the ghosts to panic. He simply memorized the stall where the martial arts secrets were located, and prepared to immediately identify the secrets and run away after getting them. He discovered that the situation of big demons invading the ghost market was still getting worse. The ransom ghost is getting closer and closer to the guinea pig. Some of the less powerful ghosts have become unconscious, and are making food squeezing sounds from their mouths. Could it be that the Jinwu guards intentionally introduced the third level of the ghost market to drive away the wolves and devour the tigers, and use the existence behind the ghost market to deal with the big demon? Shen Lian estimated that his guess was almost correct. As a collapsed world of Journey to the West, who knows if the plot would have developed as it should if Zhu Baji was still trapped in Gao Village. Shen Lian couldn't imagine how deep the water in Gao Village was. He returned to the stall and bought 3 secret books. Perhaps the ransom ghost was deeply influenced by the big demon, so he only paid a few taels of silver. The secret book is not entangled with resentment. Chapter 55, Buy for free. Not bad, very rewarding. Shen Lian glanced through the 3 martial arts secrets books and then put them into the fruit core. A volume of superior horizontal training. It's called Tiger Bone Iron Spine Kung Fu, which can barely be considered an internal martial art. It strengthens the spine through strength and is very rare in horizontal training. With Shen Lian's current tough skin and special scales, it is actually enough to face ordinary monsters. It's just that he lacks organs and bones, which will be compensated little by little later. The other 2 volumes are both superior stances, suitable for integration into the yin-yang tai chi stance. Green blood clearing heart posture. The cultivated Qingxin Jin is moderate and mild, and at the same time it can promote the regeneration of one's own blood and prolong life. Hunyuan oneness posture. The Hunyuan power is pure and restrained, and has miraculous effects in protecting the internal organs. It's a pity. If I could go to the 3rd floor of the ghost market, I would definitely gain more. Maybe I could see some magical skills and secret manuals. Shen Lian glanced at the bustling streets and saw that the severely corrupted money ransom ghosts had already begun selling strange and bizarre food. The food contained a strong resentment, causing the redemption ghosts to have their powers reduced sharply. Clearly order is breaking down. The 3rd-tier big demons are probably related to guinea pigs. After 1,000 years, their resentment can cause the demons within range to become gluttonous. Shen Lian went towards the tunnel and happened to pass by a stall selling medicinal herbs. The ransom ghost lowered his head. Because he was too fat, his facial features were squeezed together, and he mumbled incoherently. I'm afraid the Jinwu guards have already surrounded and suppressed the big demon on the 3rd floor. I feel that the influence of gluttony is continuing to intensify. Is my timing so coincidental? Shen Lian didn't know this. A 9-eared demon that looks like a myna bird sneaked into the 3rd floor of the ghost market quietly. Shen Lian dripped the last drop of eye-clearing talisman water into his right eye. After observation, he found that although the resentment on the 2nd floor of the ghost market was becoming more and more intense, the ghost market itself was not damaged at all and was extremely stable. If the great demon cannot shake the foundation of the ghost market, isn't this a good opportunity? Come to think of it, since there are dozens of ghost markets all over the Tang Dynasty, how could the demons behind them only have existed for 1 or 2,000 years? Shen Lian couldn't stop smiling, and his expression was almost the same as the ransom ghost. How are the herbs sold? The money ransom ghost did not respond, and the turbid resentment continued to cause it to turn into a pig. Shen Lian asked several times again, then reached out and picked up a 300-year-old herb. The ransom ghost began to twitch constantly, but still ignored him. Hiss, $0 purchase. Shen Lian hesitated for only half a breath, then grabbed the herbs and stuffed them into the fruit core. Not until a dozen herbs were eaten up did the ransom ghost become irritable, but he was bound tightly by the chain around his neck. Bang bang bang. Don't worry about it. Being too obsessed can shorten your life. Oh, you're already a ghost. That's fine. I'll go check out other businesses. Shen Lian turned his head and glanced at the stall next door, where there was a jade bottle containing 2 large pills. Pick up and use your wisdom. Huang Pu Dan identification completed, 9 Qi Di Yan experience plus 0.01%. Huang Pudan. Made by Fan Rong, it is a great medicine of inferior quality. After taking it, it replenishes qi and blood, promotes healing of injuries, and slightly promotes the cultivation of internal strength. Closing square bracket. No matter what Huang Pudan's origins are, it tastes the same once you eat it. Shen Lian nodded to the stall owner and threw Huang Pudan into the fruit core, causing the money ransom ghost to become furious and helpless, with resentment spewing out of his mouth and nose. Hey, eye-brightening talismans. I just ran out of eye-brightening talisman water. Do you mind taking 7 or 8? 200 years old red-skinned peanuts with medicinal properties. Bring half a pound of them for the starling, so that it won't always miss the fish fruit. Come on, take the 3 cents. Fine iron soft armor, well, I don't think I need it. It's okay, give it to the old man. Shen Lian specifically targeted those small and expensive items for free purchase. Wherever he went, a large number of money ransom ghosts rioted unwillingly. The storage space of the fruit core is really limited, only 1 cubic meter. Otherwise, I would have helped them resolve their obsession no matter what. Shen Lian felt that he had been very low-key. Most of the talismans required internal force to activate, so he only took out a dozen or so as a souvenir. If I can set up a stall at the ghost market, I can resell it later. On the second floor of the ghost market, ghosts were howling and wailing. The ransom ghosts who had not been persecuted were also screaming at the top of their lungs, and the sounds they made were like pigs and swine rooting for food. Click click click. The chains on the ransom ghost's limbs and neck began to loosen. They cast their scorching eyes at Shen Lian, as if they wanted to eat him alive. Saliva splashed out of their mouths and the ground made a crackling sound. Shen Lian stopped in front of the tunnel. The collapse of the second-tier rules of the ghost market is most likely due to the transformation of the ransom ghosts into pigs. They are transforming into another kind of ghost, so the chains are no longer effective. If nothing unexpected happens, once the rules of the ghost market are restored, all the pig-like ransom ghosts on the second floor will be cleared out. Roar! The first ghost broke free from its chains and a foul stench spread. The chains of the other ghosts broke one after another. The scene that was originally a New Year's market now looked like a gluttonous feast with demons dancing wildly. Street corner. Cough. Zhu Yihong opened his eyes weakly. She leaned against the wall and vomited continuously, her stomach full of undigested meat. The influence of the great demon was corroding her body and soul at all times. Even though there is internal strength to suppress the resentment is almost endless. It was not until this moment that Zhu Yihong realized the layout of the Jinwu guards on the 3rd floor of the ghost market, and that he was just an unexpected victim. She forced herself to stay alert and looked around the chaotic ghost market. Even if a great demon is filled with resentment, the ghosts will not riot like this. Forget it. There's no point in delving into it. In the end, you'll just become blood food for the ghosts. It's almost impossible to fight your way out of the 2nd floor. Kindness. Zhu Yihong frowned tightly. She noticed that there was a motionless figure at the end of the street, and the direction the ghost was running was obviously towards the latter. It looks like a warrior who accidentally entered the 2nd floor of the ghost market. Zhu Yihong felt that the face looked strangely familiar, but due to the resentment that had entered her body, her vision became blurred. At this moment, boom boom boom, the dull heartbeat echoed in the ghost market, causing Zhu Yihong's blood to surge. Zhu Yihong's pupils shrank slightly as she stared at Shen Lian in disbelief. The latter no longer restrained his blood and energy, and an indescribable heat came over him. Rumble. Shen Lian's flesh and blood seemed to be inflated, and his body expanded wildly in the blink of an eye, directly to just over 3 meters tall. His terrifying aura overwhelmed all the ghosts. The muscles all over his body were clearly visible, and his inky black scales were shining coldly. When breathing through the mouth and nose, white gas penetrates 4 or 5 meters. Black coffin man. Zhu Yihong finally realized why the man in the black coffin could hide in Yanliang town. The latter was obviously able to control the supernatural, which was simply unheard of. Is the black coffin man really a warrior? But how can one learn martial arts that can turn oneself into a monster? What on earth does he want to do? Kill dozens of ghosts? Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 56, Killing Ghosts and Robbing Goods, Doing All Kinds of Evil. Facing the attacking ghost, Shen Lian secretly accumulated strength. The yin and yang energy flows along the meridians and blood vessels, then releases as heat through the pores, and suddenly thick smoke and dust gradually fills the air. Come. The moment the ghost came within 10 meters of him, Shen Lian raised his leg high and stepped hard. Boom boom boom. Even in the ghost market, the blue bricks on the ground had spider web-like cracks spreading across them. The ghosts were thrown to the ground, but their eyes were still fixed on Shen Lian. No demon could resist the temptation of the latter's blood and energy. Shen Lian lightly tapped his right foot and disappeared from the spot in an instant. Zhu Yihong looked up and saw Shen Lian was already 100 meters in the air, with smoke and dust surrounding him, as if he appeared riding on the clouds. Nothing could be more shocking than witnessing Shen Lian's demonic skills up close. Hiss. Zhu Yihong had always been exposed to internal strength and had never imagined that martial arts could reach such an astonishing level. But, no matter how strong the qi and blood are, it should be difficult to resist the demonic aura, right? Zhu Yihong was in a trance until Shen Lian collided heavily with a ghost, and the gust of air swept across the entire second floor of the ghost market. Boom! The ghosts were torn into pieces, and the dark sea of fire swept across most of the ghost market. Shen Lian had a ferocious look on his face and he slapped away several ghosts with one palm, using his yin and yang energy to its full potential. Bang bang bang. His fists were like a violent storm, and one could vaguely see some of the techniques of the great monument palm. That's right, even if ghosts kept pouring in, he still had the leisure to practice the fighting techniques that he had not yet mastered. Appraisal completed, 9 Qi Di Yan experience plus 0.11%. That's great. I can actually get 1,000th of the experience. It's worth the trip. I should be able to get a few points by killing all of you. Shen Lian was covered in blood. The ghost's blood contained resentment and was constantly eroding himself. The other ghosts were not afraid of the death of their own kind, but remained as vicious as ever. The gluttony from the great demon had penetrated into their bones. Shen Lian's fists turned into afterimages, and all the ghosts they came into contact with were scared to death. Appraisal completed, 9 Qi Di Yan experience plus 0.12%. Appraisal completed, 9 Qi Di Yan experience plus 0.09%. However, there are so many ghosts that it is inevitable that some of them will slip through the net and get close to the body. Even if it is just a minor wound, the sweet smell of blood will drive the other ghosts completely crazy. Shen Lian was not in a hurry and scanned the career panel. Question mark. Big monument palm, first look. Warm-up time is over. I will finish you off in 10 minutes. Heart rate increases. Dust from the evaporation of sweat floated from the gaps in Shen Lian's armor, and his whole body swelled up again, with the standing scales buzzing. The ghost face formed by the back muscles seemed to be grinning, and countless metallic blood vessels were entangled with each other, looking like a demon but not a human. Boom! Shen Lian exerted force with his legs and directly pushed away the group of ghosts surrounding him. Ha 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 ha! As his fist struck, the air formed ripples, and the chests of 4 or 5 ghosts exploded at the same time, with their internal organs flying out. Shen Lian casually pressed down on the head of a ghost and crushed it, as if he was in an empty space. A ghost bit his shoulder, and Shen Lian tore half of the ghost's body into pieces. The ghost with 100 years of experience seemed to be vulnerable. The wisdom eye constantly reveals information. The stagnant experience progress began to increase rapidly, and the resentment around him formed a tornado, and finally all the resentment was concentrated in Shen Lian's mouth and nose. Demon, warrior, alchemist, what the hell is he? Zhu Yihong's face turned pale. Facing Shen Lian, she felt even more fearful than the demon. After all, the latter completely overturned her perception. The Yamen runner was right to suspect that the man in the black coffin was a Taoist priest, because he didn't look like a human at all. Zhu Yihong was then hit by the aftermath of Shen Lian's punch from hundreds of meters away and fainted. Before he lost consciousness, he was still muttering about the man in the black coffin. Hey hey hey! Shen Lian couldn't help but burst into laughter. 9 Qi Earth aversion reaches 10.01%, martial arts points plus 4. Shen Lian became more and more devoted to clearing out the ghosts. He thought that this opportunity was rare and it would be difficult to encounter a similar situation next time in the ghost market. What is the innate horizontal training holy body? It combines all the martial arts into one. Shen Lian felt that his great steel palm skill was improving at a speed visible to the naked eye. After smashing the heads of 35 ghosts in a row, his fighting style reached a minor level of success. At the same time, due to the continuous flow of blood, the blood reversing skill also makes amazing progress. Only one step away from perfection. Of course, it is not without disadvantages. Shen Lian's current terrifying state is very strange. His blood has become the fuel to keep his body functioning, and the yin-yang power is the fire that ignites the fuel. If this continues for a long time, I'm afraid the blood will be burned dry. Shen Lian took out a fish fruit and swallowed it, just like adding a handful of firewood to the stove. The huge stomach took a moment to digest the nutrients. The number of ghosts was decreasing sharply, but Shen Lian showed no intention of stopping. Die. The blood-reversing skill was successfully promoted. After killing so many people, even the ghosts were frightened, but the space of the ghost market was limited, and they were eventually reduced to ashes. After Shen Lian beat to death most of the ghosts that tried to hide, his body returned to normal. In his hand he was holding a severely injured ghost, whose limbs and head had sunk into its body and whose consciousness was in panic, making it convenient to carry. Well, let's see what kind of elixir the pregnant creature divine power can breed from the ghost. Shen Lian scanned the progress of each profession and found that the sharp-toothed warrior had reached 73.43%, and the 9-energy earthly aversion had also reached 12.83%, with a total of 25 points. He looked around and found that few of the items that the ransom ghost had originally sold were intact. I bought at least 1,000 taels of silver for 0 yuan, and I didn't pay any price at all. I really love the ghost market, this blessed land. Shen Lian walked towards the tunnel, and a prompt appeared on the career panel at this time. Appraisal completed, 9 Qi Di Yan experience plus 7.04%. The corner of Shen Lian's mouth twitched. He didn't use his keen eye. It was obvious that it was the starling who was causing trouble, and it was most likely a big one. He quickly walked to the tunnel and was about to enter it. The bone sapling retracted its roots, the bone gate disappeared, and the endless black air returned to the starling, who blinked in aftertaste. Shen Lian secretly breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the myna bird pretending to be dead. 8th Master. Awesome. He even dared to steal the head of a 1,000-year-old demon. You have to remember, you are a crow, no, you are a starling. Although Shen Lian didn't know how the starling sneaked to the 3rd floor, he didn't dare to stay there any longer. He wrapped the ghost in a rag and returned to the 1st floor. The 3rd floor of Ghost Market. A dozen Jinwu guards looked at each other. After trapping the 1,000-year-old pig ghost, they temporarily left the Ghost Market and did not come back until the ghost died. And now, the 1,000-year-old pig ghost has become a pile of bloody remains. They couldn't help but feel their scalps tingling when they saw this. Judging from the traces of a fight, it was definitely not a 4th-level money ransom ghost who took action, but rather an unknown giant demon that has been practicing for more than 2,000 years. And there is another aura of plant and wood demons, which have been around for 500 or 600 years. Could it be that apart from Gao Laozhuang, there is another cave between the 4 towns? Chapter 57. Various martial arts advancing in parallel. When Shen Lian appeared on the 1st floor of the Ghost Market, even though he did not transform into an exaggerated indestructible bronze body, he still frightened all the ransom ghosts. After all, he was holding a century-old ghost that was almost scared to death. Under the horrified gazes of the ghosts and the stunned looks of the scattered warriors, the man and the bird left the Ghost Market cursing. The weather is changing. The bigger the wind and waves, the more expensive the fish will be. Shen Lian noticed that a continuous drizzle covered Yanliang town, and the giant stomach food produced a faint throbbing, proving that the coming of the spring rain was strange. He caught a few drops in his palm and tasted it, then discovered that there was a faint evil spirit mixed in with the rainwater. It was obvious that the fish disaster was getting worse. A few muffled roars were heard from deep within the South City area. What? Shen Lian frowned and turned his head with foresight. He bent his fingers with force and flicked them out. Suddenly, raindrops turned into steel balls and flashed by. Then, the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was heard not far away. Shen Lian walked closer and saw the body of a deformed wild dog twitching. The fur on most of the wild dog's body had fallen off, revealing flesh covered with fish scales, and there were organs similar to gills on its neck. What the hell is this? It looks so weird. Shen Lian frowned slightly. In this case, it is very likely that the underground river has been eroded by the strong evil spirit, causing the rainwater to be contaminated with the evil spirit and even affecting some animals. Come on, 3 people and a dog. The myna stared at Shen Lian with great interest, trying to whet the latter's appetite. You think too much. Even if it contains a vast amount of experience, well, I will only consider it for a moment. That wild dog is not even a half-demon, and the experience it provides is very limited. Besides, am I, Shen Lian, the kind of person who eats raw meat and drinks blood? Shen Lian looked around and saw a large number of yamen runners dispersing into various urban areas. Slip away. Seeing this, he quickened his pace, climbed into the courtyard of the pawnshop before daybreak, and threw the ransom ghost into the banyan tree hole. Absorb the ransom ghost, corpse Taoist experience plus 3.6%. As expected of a ghost with 100 years of cultivation, when its resentment remains, there is almost no noticeable difference between it and a flesh and blood body. Shen Lian felt a little pity. If he had a magical tool to temporarily seal the demons, he could also bring back some ghosts from the second floor of the ghost market to make pills. I think there are magical instruments for sale on the third floor, but... Shen Lian laughed awkwardly and said to himself, the ghost market in Yanliang town will probably be closed for a few months again. It's all because of the starling who always likes to stir up trouble. Stupid. The starling was too lazy to pay attention to Shen Lian and landed on a newly built nest on a branch to rest. Shen Lian closed his eyes and felt the looming demonic aura. The government office took a moment to suppress the abnormality. It was obvious that the Jinwu guards had anticipated this. Hey, why are you so eager? Give me a few fish monsters to try. Shen Lian summoned his career panel before dawn. Do you want to consume 3 points to combine the indestructible bronze body and the blood reversal skill? It seems that the upper limit of martial arts synthesis is 3 points. The moment Shen Lian secretly confirmed it, a large number of blood vessels were exposed on the surface of his skin, and the blood vessels were slowly wriggling like living things. The capillaries throughout the skin and flesh become tougher. No matter what heavy blow you suffer in the future, even your blood vessels can provide a certain amount of cushion. I don't know how much time has passed. When Shen Lian woke up, the two horizontal training techniques had merged into one. It is hard to imagine that despite his thin appearance, he actually hides a level of training that is as powerful as that of a demon. Unknown horizontal training, bronze body. With the help of the occupation panel, it can be seen that the immortal bronze body has not yet been reborn. But when the newly acquired Tiger Bone Iron Spine skill is perfected, it should be able to push the immortal bronze body to a higher level. Shen Lian adapted to his new indestructible bronze body and picked up the martial arts secret book he had purchased and started to read it. First, learn the basics of the stance method. After all, the stance method does not have the blessing of the innate horizontal training holy body, so it is inevitable that the practice will take time and effort. With Shen Lian's understanding of martial arts, he grasped the key to the Bishueqingxin stance in a moment, and then adjusted himself little by little through standing still. The yin-yang energy did not show any movement, and soon a new Qingxin energy was born. The clear blood heart pillar. First look. Shen Lian was still somewhat dissatisfied. Compared to the rapid progress of horizontal training, the pole training does require a lot of effort to practice, and it is a waste to rely entirely on the profession panel to add points. It's better than. Shen Lian took out the secret book of Hunyuan Yiti posture, and on the premise of maintaining the Bishueqingxin posture, he planned to practice the two postures side by side. After groping for a while, he could barely sense the existence of two forces at the same time. Bang bang bang. Shen Lian's body would make muffled sounds of gasping for breath every now and then. Logically, his meridians would be damaged at least, but his physical strength was there. No matter how much trouble you take, it's difficult to shake the foundation. When the elixir bred by the money-giving ghost matured, Shen Lian's martial arts column just happened to have a new Hunyuan Yiti posture first glimpse, and the two stances barely maintained a trend of complementing each other. Shen Lian was in a very good mood. He reached out to pick the pill fruit while consolidating his strength. The appearance of the Dan fruit is similar to that of a silver coin, and the patterns on it appear rusty. Question mark. Blood money fruit. Question mark. Grown from the banyan tree, it strengthens the lungs and nourishes the soul after consumption. The elixir fruits bred by monsters act on the body, and the elixir fruits bred by ghosts act on the soul. Monsters and demons are all great tonics. The Mina wanted to snatch the elixir fruit, so Shen Lian quickly dismissed it with the red-skinned peanuts he had picked up at the ghost market. After all, it is a 200- or 300-year-old medicinal herb. The starling held the peanut in its mouth contentedly, not caring about the actions of its Mount Lian who embezzled the money. Shen Lian threw the blood money fruit into his mouth, and his mind suddenly became clear. He vaguely sensed the existence of the Niwen Palace in the upper Dantian, but it only lasted for half a breath, and soon the nutrients of the blood money fruit were gone. If nothing unexpected happens, the realm of advancement in the fifth innate realm should be closely related to the soul. It finally feels like cultivation. Shen Lian practiced the stance method patiently, and only started practicing the tiger bone iron spine technique after his strength was stabilized. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. The 2 types of pole techniques have been promoted to minor success. The progress is faster than expected. In 2 or 3 months at most, I should have the opportunity to achieve perfection. Shen Lian planned to consume as few points as possible unless he encountered an obvious bottleneck. Anyway, there was nothing urgent for the time being. He began to do nothing every day, basking in the sun. After the fish fruits are consumed, the resources purchased for 0 yuan are just left. Not to mention, the expensive medicine tasted really good, and it made Shen Lian temporarily forget the unbearable past of eating dirt and trees. Huang Pu Dan has a soft and glutinous taste, with a chamomile fragrance. Ju Shen Wan has a bitter and slightly sweet taste, with an undisguised medicinal aroma left between the lips and teeth. Shen Lian didn't care what effect the medicine had, as long as it was swallowed it would be digested into nutrients. As for the fish monster, the government seemed to have controlled the scale of the fish disaster case. In 7 days, there was only one fish monster with low skills, so Shen Lian no longer paid attention to it. After spending so much effort to get kills, the experience gained was very little. It was better to have the pickled fish that Ma Yi occasionally sent to me. At least I didn't have to waste my energy. Chapter 58 Demon. I am a martial arts master. More than half a month has passed in the blink of an eye. The pawn shop's business has been good, but because Shen Hansheng has not yet recovered, the antique calligraphy and paintings in the warehouse cannot be sold quickly. In order to prevent the shortage of money, Shen Hansheng simply relied on his previous connections to sell some items at low prices to wealthy businessmen in the city. He has also become more open-minded and is content with just living on his own 3-acre piece of land. Besides, Shen Hansheng looked towards the courtyard with lingering fear. A dull knocking sound could be heard echoing. It was Shen Lian who was training in the backyard. His son's talent in martial arts was far beyond ordinary. Shen Hansheng felt that Shen Lian might not be willing to inherit the pawnshop in the future. You can't pass it to the starling, right? When Lian has a child, he will be able to settle down and things will probably be much better. While Shen Hansheng was thinking, he heard old Wang remind him, "Boss, the Jinwu guard Li Shun from the Yamen has come to the pawnshop." Understood. Shen Hansheng nodded, quickly smiled and opened the door. Before he could open his mouth, he smelled an indescribable smell of blood. He was stunned on the spot, his eyes fell on Li Shun's hand. There were more than a dozen Yamen runners in total, and Hong'an was also among them. "Don't panic, boss. We'll only be here for a moment." Li Shun had a stern expression as he held a head wrapped in black cloth. Why was it called a head? Because all the facial features could be seen through the black cloth. There was a little blood dripping from the neck of the head. "Come in, please." Li Shun was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Shen Hansheng's injuries were no longer serious. He heard that it was only by taking powerful medicine that his resentment was dispelled. It seemed that the pawnshop paid a lot of money. "Shopkeeper Shen, do you mind if I wait for you to look around the shop?" "I don't mind, of course I don't mind." Shen Hansheng made a horrified discovery through the mouth and nose covered by the black cloth. The brain is still alive. Just as he was about to follow Li Shun, he was stopped by several Yamen runners. He could only watch the Jinwu guards enter the courtyard, and he couldn't help feeling worried. Could it be that my son had offended the government? Or was it related to the fish monster? Li Shun lifted the black cloth, revealing a head that looked like a tiger and a human, and then asked cautiously, "Master Zuo Qinhu, is there the aura of a 1,000-year-old demon in the Shen family pawnshop?" Zuo Yan answered, "No, but Yang Weikang has been here before." Li Shun nodded. He felt very uncomfortable facing Zuo Yan's magical power of beheading people without dying. It was hard for him to imagine what level of cultivation Qianhu had reached. You know, Zuo Yan himself is still in Gaolaozhuang. Just wanting to investigate the 9-eared demon, he sent his head away and traveled 100 miles a day to reach Yanliang town. If there is no clue for a long time, Zuo Yan will withdraw his head. After all, the court's current attention still needs to be focused on Gaolaozhuang. "Li Shun, how is Zhu Yihong's injury?" Reporting to Lord Zuo, "It has stabilized." "Well, several 10 households will come to Yanliang town to deal with the fish disaster together. You don't have to worry too much. The main thing is that 9-eared demon." "What?" Zuo Yan raised his eyebrows and asked Li Shun to stop in front of the courtyard gate. They looked through the corridor window. Shen Lian was seen lying at the foot of the banyan tree, with 2 guards holding stone hammers and iron spikes, constantly hitting the gaps in his spine. Even the Jinwu guards couldn't help but feel surprised. Shen Lian was obviously practicing horizontal training, and it could be seen that he had mastered this martial art to perfection without damaging his foundation. He is. The young master of the pawn shop, Shen Lian, has already stepped into the ranks of warriors and his talent is indeed good. Zhuo Yan laughed strangely and muttered to himself, he is a natural-born strongman. There are not many similar baits in the Jinwu guards. Li Shun was speechless. The so-called meat bait refers to the Yamen warriors who use their qi and blood to attract demons. It is said that the imperial court sent nearly 1,000 Yamen runners to Gao Laozhuang before they brought a 1,000-year-old demon into the 3rd floor of the ghost market. After Zhuo Yan praised Shen Lian for a few words, he did not pay too much attention to him. With his status as 1,000 households, he would not force a warrior to be bait. Li Shun asked, Master Zhuo, do you want to go take a look in the courtyard? No need, Yang Weikang didn't die in the pawn shop. Zhuo Yan shook his head and added, there is more than one great demon lurking in Yanliang town. Judging from the existing traces, there are at least 3. Ah! The starling landed on the courtyard wall outside the window, very close to the 2 of them. Zhuo Yan stared at the starling for a few breaths, and continued to talk to himself. The 9-eared demon has been practicing Taoism for more than 2,000 years, and has great magical powers. Li Shun couldn't help but tremble. He was overwhelmed with inexplicable fear and turned his head away to look at the lush banyan tree in the courtyard. Only then did the uneasiness in his heart subside. Zhuo Yan sighed and said, the plant demon has been in existence for about 500 or 600 years. There is a high probability that Yang Weikang will die at its hands. The 2 did not notice that the shadow in the corner was shaking slightly. The last demon traveled for 1,000 years, but few traces were left behind. Zhuo Yan said in a deep voice, if the great demon had not attacked mortals and had not leaked its aura to affect the environment, Yanliang town would be worthy of being called a cave residence. Let's go, Li Shun. I'll take my head back after I've dealt with the fish disaster case. The 2 men slowly left the pawn shop. Shen Lian opened his eyes. In fact, with his perception as a warrior, he had already noticed it as soon as the 2 of them first entered the pawn shop, but he just pretended to know nothing. Shen Lian almost couldn't help but take action. After all, the visitors' methods were too strange. The demonic inner strength of that Jinwu guard is probably related to the great immortal Huli, the one who likes to chop off his own head. In Journey to the West, there are 3 demons in Chechi Kingdom, namely Tiger Power Immortal, Deer Power Immortal, and Sheep Power Immortal. They are the 34th, 35th, and 36th difficulties. Continue. Shen Lian signaled Dang Ding to swing the stone hammer, while another Dang Ding aimed the iron spike at the spine. There is no other way. The tiger bone iron spine technique also requires a heavy blow from external force. Otherwise, relying on the yin and yang power to temper the bones is too slow. He called out the career panel. Martial arts, yin-yang tai chi posture, tide flame, indestructible copper body, tide strike fist, perfect, tiger bone iron spine, great success, blue blood clear heart posture, great success, Hunyuan oneness posture, great success, big monument palm, minor success. Compared with the 2 stances, the tiger bone iron spine technique is very close to perfection. After being tempered, the bones of the spine became more and more like jade, and the occasional cracks were healed in a short time. Increase the force. The 2 Dang Dings were sweating profusely. Even if it was mining in the salt mountain, it was no different. However, they did not complain at all. The main reason was that the young master had agreed to teach them the Yang Yuan pillar, which made them ecstatic. After Shen Lian had been torturing himself for 6 days, the bottleneck of the tiger bone iron spine technique finally loosened, and he immediately felt a tingling sensation in his spine. He crawled on the ground, and the movements of his limbs were like a tiger. Spring rain fell in Yanliang town again. Shen Lian arched his back and stretched his spine. His bones collided with each other, making loud sounds, and his tiger bone iron spine technique was completed. Do you want to consume 3 points to combine the immortal bronze body and tiger bone iron spine skill? The moment he confirmed the synthesis, the spine came alive. Chapter 59, Not having Tang Seng's fate, but having Tang Seng's disease. The spine came alive. The spine was twisting and the joints were growing stronger, as if they were about to break out of the body. Shen Lian's normal state was forcibly raised to 1.85 meters, his bones collided, and his muscles appeared in a meticulously sculpted streamlined shape. He scanned the career panel, and the handwriting of the two horizontal exercises gradually merged into one. Massive amounts of information surged in his mind, and the synthesized horizontal martial arts were extremely complex, involving almost every aspect. If it were someone else, it would be basically difficult to even get started. Shen Lian never expected that the synthesis of horizontal training would be so drastic. He only felt that his spine was on the verge of losing control, madly absorbing nutrients from his body, while his own blood was flowing back into his spine. In just a few moments, 40% of Shen Lian's blood had been consumed by his spine. "Young master, are you okay?" When Ding saw that Shen Lian was acting strangely, he hurried forward to check. However, when he was about 10 meters away, his legs instinctively stopped where they were. Fear. That's right, when Ding felt an inexplicable fear in his heart, it seemed that he would die if he took another step forward. The familiar figure not far away was no longer Shen Lian, but a disguised demon. "I'm fine. You can talk to the old man. My martial arts skills have reached a bottleneck. I will be in seclusion in the backyard for the next few days." Shen Lian clapped his palms, and an invisible hurricane forced Dang Ding to retreat several meters. Okay. When Ding Li was far away, the fear in his heart was greatly reduced. He secretly sighed that the young master was truly talented and had made great achievements after learning martial arts for half a year. He really couldn't understand Shen Lian. On the one hand, he does nothing all day long and seems to have no interest in anything. On the other hand, he has a special liking for the self-mutilating martial arts. Shen Lian resisted the urge to transform into a giant and closed his eyes to sense the subtle changes in his spine. His expression showed a hint of surprise. The spinal cord is mainly responsible for hematopoiesis, and a warrior's qi and blood are his foundation. Therefore, only after the immortal bronze body is reborn will its foundation be pushed to a whole new level. If you interrupt it forcibly, it is equivalent to losing an opportunity. Shen Lian took out a few pills and swallowed them whole. By replenishing the nutrients, he kept his qi and blood flowing continuously. When the spine is saturated, drops of sticky blood will flow out. The quality of qi and blood that the new blood can accommodate is far beyond the ordinary, which means that he is far ahead in the direction of Tang Monk's flesh. Shen Lian did not waste the elixir. While he was undergoing a transformation, he was also tempering his eye meridians, while the other two forces were also circulating throughout the body. Not counting the minor branches, there are 6 eye meridians in total. Taking advantage of the opportunity of horizontal training breakthrough, I can at least complete 2 of them. Shen Lian controlled the yin and yang energy to impact the meridians. He felt the blocked meridians become unblocked little by little, and the vision of his eyes became clearer and clearer. After the Jinwu guards entered the 5th realm of innateness, they transformed into demonic physiques. They tempered the meridians of the 5 senses, which was actually to revive the perception of the eyes, ears, mouth, nose, tongue and body, making themselves more like humans. The innate 5 realms of a warrior are completely different. They enable the 5 senses to reach their peak. Shen Lian opened his mouth, revealing some of the characteristics of his extreme horizontal training, and his teeth became sharp and terrifying. Hee, no matter how you look at it, we warriors are all on the right path. There are bone spurs protruding between the vertebrae, which extend and retract with breathing. If other people witnessed this, how could they believe that the demon in front of them was a warrior who claimed to be righteous? To be honest, the Jinwu guards do look more like humans. Shen Lian was fully focused on his cultivation. Woo-hoo-hoo. The faint sounds coming from the courtyard were like a mountain god taking a nap. Shen Hansheng and others occasionally looked at Shen Lian from afar through the window. The noises made by the latter when practicing martial arts were truly astounding. However, with their knowledge, they were completely unaware of Shen Lian's attainments in martial arts. Shen Lian's retreat lasted longer than expected. Before he knew it, 2 days had passed. The spring rains continued during this period, and people could not help but feel worried. After all, it rarely rains for more than 2 days in Yanliang town throughout the year. When there are unusual celestial phenomena, people may easily associate them with the misfortunes caused by demons or evil spirits. Moreover, the government's attitude was a bit ambiguous. Not only was a curfew imposed, but people were not allowed to move around among the 4 urban areas. There were rumors everywhere for a while. Shen Hansheng was also deeply affected. Although he did not dare to disturb his child who was in seclusion, he asked 2 guards to guard the courtyard at all times at night. The spring rain came on the 5th day and still did not stop. Some people saw 6 Jinwu guards arriving at Yanliang town early in the morning. It was obvious that the situation was not as simple as it seemed and had alarmed the imperial court. Without waiting for them to inquire about the reason, some yamen runners began to visit every household. Shen Hansheng quickly opened the door and saw Captain Hong. He couldn't help but ask, "Captain Hong, what is the situation in Yanliang town now?" Captain Hong looked a little tired and signaled the bailiffs following him to patrol the streets on their own. "Manager Shen, I can't tell you the details. You have also experienced many ups and downs, so you must know that disasters are inevitable in this world." "Yeah." Shen Hansheng gave a wry smile and quickly made tea for Captain Hong. "No need for tea, I have something to do next." Captain Hong looked around the store and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, compared to the previous corpse stripping case, this is just a small matter." "Huh, that's good. According to the Jinwu guards, if there is a well in the courtyard, it must be sealed as soon as possible, and the accumulated water must be drained and disposed of in a timely manner." Captain Hong explained in detail, and Shen Hansheng remembered it all. The two did not mention demons, but they both knew that the thing that could cause such a large commotion by the Jinwu guards must be related to demons. "Manager Shen, if you hear the sound of gongs in the middle of the night, it means that the spring rains have already brought floods. You can go to the market in the center of Shicheng district, where there is a disaster prevention office set up by the Jinwu guards." Captain Hong stopped there. Shen Hansheng couldn't help but swallow his saliva, his face showing fear. Although the spring rain is continuous, the amount of rainfall is very limited and there is no chance of causing floods. The sound of gongs probably represents the wreaking of havoc by demons. After saying this, Captain Hong left in a hurry. Shen Hansheng watched Captain Hong leave, then told his staff to clean up the shop. Since it was too late for the government to just issue notices, they had to send bailiffs to warn people at home, which showed that the fish disaster could not be delayed. Water. Shen Hansheng glanced towards the backyard. At least the pawnshop didn't have the problem of water accumulation. As Shen Lian retreated, his exposed blood and qi became hotter and hotter. Water. The rain evaporated as soon as it landed within half a meter. Shen Hansheng has come into contact with many martial artists, including Shen Lian's mentor Bai Haibo. "I always feel like, is it that only Shen Lian can be so exaggerated, or are the other warriors more restrained?" Shen Hansheng remained noncommittal, thinking that perhaps his son was a rare martial arts genius. The 7th day of the spring rain. The doors and windows of Yanliang town were closed, and few people went out on the streets even during the day. The barking of dogs in the deep alleys continued, and the sounds became increasingly strange, like a baby crying, and then the dogs were beaten to death by the yamen runners who rushed over. Chapter 60 Bronze Body Dharma. At night, there was no light in any of the urban areas of Yanliang town. The attitude of the yamen runners towards the fish disaster case inevitably made the people feel uneasy, but fortunately, the strange spring rain finally stopped on the 8th day. Inside the Shen family pawnshop, Shen Hansheng and others chose to rest in the lobby. After all, if there really is a flood, they can escape as soon as possible, and at the same time take care of Shen Lian who is still in seclusion in the backyard. "Hey, Lian, you can practice martial arts and retreat at any time, but you had to pick such a good day." "Boss, although the flood came strangely, at least there are 7 or 8 Jinwu guards guarding Yanliang town, so there won't be any trouble." Shen Hansheng nodded and couldn't help but look towards the backyard. Most of the mist had dissipated, and Shen Lian was sitting cross-legged at the foot of the banyan tree. With every breath, a white mist was constantly circling around his mouth and nose. Apart from 3 meals a day, Shen Lian hardly moves. "Ah, where are Mr. Ba's peanuts?" The starling was clamoring to satisfy its craving. Shen Hansheng was afraid that the noise would cause trouble, so he quickly asked Fugi to get a bag of red-skinned peanuts from the wooden rack. There were 2 servants, one was responsible for combing the starling's feathers, and the other was responsible for feeding it peanuts. "Ah, serve Master Ba well, Shen Lian won't treat you badly." Shen Hansheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ever since Mina started hanging out with Shen Lian, his temper had gotten out of control and no one in the pawnshop dared to offend him. He was just about to make a few jokes when he suddenly heard footsteps in the darkness outside the door. Pat pat pat. Everyone felt as if their backs were pierced by a thorn, and they didn't even dare to breathe too hard, because no one knew whether the footsteps outside the door were those of a human or a monster. A moment later, a distorted black shadow appeared at the door through the moonlight. Their pupils couldn't help but shrink and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. Only the starling glanced at them with disdain and continued to eat peanuts. The black shadow seemed to notice something and ran to the other end of the street using all four limbs. Everyone couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. They faintly heard the news of fighting between yamen runners in various parts of the city. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. They only hoped that the yamen could put an end to this once and for all problem. In anxiety, everyone waited until midnight. The number of demons roaming the streets and alleys seemed to be decreasing, but the continuous spring rain happened again, which was creepy. Rumble. The pawn shop shook, as if something heavy had hit the ground somewhere in Shicheng district. Before they could react, the sound of rapid gongs rang out, and the entire Shicheng district began to boil, with people rushing to evacuate. Shen Hansheng stood up and said, "We should wake up Shen Lian and head to the market immediately. If we are any later, we might be in danger." "Boss, I understand." The guy simply packed up his things and Shen Hansheng went to the backyard. At this moment, thump, the building shook again, and everyone stopped in their tracks. Then the wine jars on the shelf fell to the ground, and the wine splashed everywhere. None of the other guys realized it, only Shen Hansheng turned his head belatedly. The wine formed a large water stain, with waves on the surface. Shen Hansheng's pupils shrank slightly. He found that something was wrong with the water stains. They were spreading on the ground, and the volatile alcohol smell was mixed with an indescribable stench. "It tastes like fish that has been dead for a long time." Everyone looked towards the water stain with tingling scalps, and a scaly arm stretched out from it, followed by the hideous head of a fish monster. The fish monster retains most of the characteristics of fish, which shows that its cultivation is still in its infancy. But no matter how powerful a demon is, it is still a demon. How can mortals defeat it? Shen Hansheng therefore realized why the government was so concerned about water sources, as if demons could travel through the plane of water flow. Immediately afterwards, another fish monster came out and crawled flexibly on the wall. The two fish monsters moved one in front and one behind, blocking the retreat route with extremely fast movements. They had already treated the people in the pawn shop as meat on the chopping block, intending to have a feast. The temptation of blood food was irresistible. The fish monster licked the scales excitedly, already imagining the scene of skinning and gutting them. When the mynah bird saw the silly look of the fish monster, it couldn't help but lose interest. When Ding blocked Shen Hansheng, he drew out his sword for self-defense. Shen Hansheng said softly, "The two of you find a chance to fight your way out of the backyard. Don't worry about me and old Wang. Meet up with Shen Lian and flee to the market." The shopkeeper. The fish demon couldn't wait to pounce, and the pungent demonic aura filled the air. However, the moment the fish monster approached the crowd, it retreated as if facing a powerful enemy, staring at the corridor leading to the courtyard with fear. The corridor was covered with mist. There was a huge creature looming, with scales standing up all over its limbs, its eyes filled with murderous intent, and there seemed to be a long tail swinging behind it. A monster that's only 4 or 5 years old. Tay. Everyone heard the sound of spitting. Whoosh. Then a spit flashed by and hit the fish monster right between the eyebrows. Blood burst out from the back of its head. It was obvious that the saliva had gone straight through the skull. The fish demon fell to the ground and couldn't get up. Shen Lian has returned to normal and walked out of the courtyard unsteadily. The other fish monster sensed the threat and retreated while letting out a shrill roar. The man who appeared not far away made it very afraid. They are just small fish and shrimps. It seems that it is not time for the Jinwu guards to take real action yet. Shen Lian ignored the fish monster and helped Shen Hansheng up. Everyone looked at each other, unable to imagine that the monster was so vulnerable. The surviving fish monster returned to the water stain and tentatively tried to dive into it. Boom! Shen Lian disappeared on the spot and kicked, and half of the fish monster's body was instantly separated, while its limbs still maintained the movement of preparing to escape. The starlings were quacking loudly. Shen Hansheng opened his mouth slightly, and finally had a direct feeling of Shen Lian's strength. "Chang, you are worthy of being my son." The others had no idea at all, they only knew that Shen Lian was gifted. Shen Lian threw the two fish monster corpses into the banyan tree hole. After going back and forth in the courtyard, everyone realized that they had to evacuate to the market. Time is running out. Shen Lian narrowed his eyes. He thought that the Jinwu guards might be planning to lure out all the fish monsters in the underground river to protect the people and also use them as bait. Ah Lian, then. Don't worry, the Jinwu guards will deal with most of the demons. Even if there are some scattered demons, they will not notice the inconspicuous pawn shop. Shen Hansheng didn't know why, but he always felt that Shen Lian was eager to try. Everyone has not yet recovered from the shock of Shen Lian killing the demon, but since the latter can deal with ordinary demons, they can be considered to have a backbone. Old man, remember I asked the blacksmith to make a copper pot 2 years ago. Instead of rushing around, why don't we sit down and have something to eat together? What? Shen Lian signaled to the waiter to prepare the ingredients for the hot pot, and he picked up the chopsticks and knocked on the dishes. The guy quickly did as he was told. Shen Lian chuckled and scanned the career panel. Immortal bronze body dharma. How can a few small monsters be enough to eat? They can't even use 1/10 of my strength. Let's wait and see if there are any big fish. I just don't know how Master Bai is doing. It should be fine. The fish monsters on the street are obviously released by the Jinwu guards. Even if the guards cooperate with each other, they can be killed. Young master, the food is here. Yep, eat hot pot first, then eat monsters. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.